Chapter 528. Breakthrough to Balancing Heaven. Golden Immortal Realm Perfection. Guan looked at the 9 options before him, sinking into contemplation. These names all seemed good, but some places were forbidden. The War Spirit Holy Mansion wouldn't have anything to do with the battle court, right? Netherworld Deep Sea is out of the question. The Land of Reincarnation is also very dangerous. The ghost immortals of the 9 Divine Mansion are terrifying. It would be troublesome if encountered. The Path of the Great Tao, that's the cosmic space beyond the world gate, linking the different great thousand worlds. Who knows what one might run into? Guan began to weigh his options. Judging by the names was indeed difficult. His current cultivation level was not enough to deduce the origins of these place names. Clearly, these places were not part of the celestial spirit great world. They were located beyond the world gate. He pondered and pondered. Guan decided to break through in the celestial extreme 9 heavens. With a thought, he immediately made his decision. Transferring to celestial extreme 9 heavens will cost 10 billion years of lifespan. Continue. 10 billion years? Wouldn't that be 20 billion years of lifespan back and forth? Guan's brows furrowed. He had guessed that the lifespan breakthrough would be costly. After all, it was a lifespan function that was enabled by 100 billion years of lifespan. The consumption of lifespan would definitely be huge. Go to Wuxia world. Sight, but he had to break through. The remaining 80 billion years of lifespan should be enough for his breakthrough. Now he could only hope that this place of breakthrough was worthy of the lifespan he was about to spend. After a moment's hesitation, Guan chose to continue the transfer. As soon as the thought settled, he felt an irresistible force envelop him. He didn't feel uncomfortable, but rather felt an indescribable sense of profound mystery. His eyes involuntarily closed, and his senses went numb. After a while, Guan felt his feet touch the ground. His senses returned to normal in an instant, and he opened his eyes, his pupils dilating. What entered his sight was a boundless sea of clouds. The sky a deep blue, so high it made one feel the vastness of the great heaven and earth, and one could only feel an infinite awe standing in it. Guan opened his mouth, filled with shock. Such dense Tao spiritual qi. The Tao spiritual qi here was denser than that in the universe outside the celestial spirit great heaven and earth, and purer too. Without a hint of impurity, Guan felt that the 10 billion years of lifespan were well spent. He immediately activated the lifespan barrier to prevent the passing of other powerful beings. The lifespan breakthrough would take him to a safe place, but it didn't mean this place would always be safe. After the lifespan barrier was activated, Guan's heart finally settled. One must be cautious in an unknown land. Instead of breaking through immediately, he decided to meditate on the spot, soaking in the majestic sea of clouds. Celestial extreme 9 heavens. Could it be there were 9 layers of the sky? Guan thought as he spread his divine sense, rapidly expanding it. However, he found that the sea of clouds was much larger than he imagined. Most importantly, his divine sense could not penetrate downward because the cloud sea beneath his feet was bottomless, with some sort of great Tao power isolating all divine sense. He seemed to be in the sky, yet he was at the very bottom. After a good while, Guan's divine sense still could not probe the end of the sea of clouds. Could this sea of clouds be more vast than the universe he came from? The thought was so preposterous that Guan felt it was absurd, creating even more wariness towards the celestial extreme 9 heavens. Tao spiritual qi that was more dense and pure than in the universe. The space that was vaster than the universe. What kind of terrifying existence could such a place give birth to? Guan took a deep breath and tried not to think about it. He called up his attribute panel. Name: Guan. Lifespan: 6-8-15/90, 000, 075. Physique: Primordial infinite body. Cultivation level: Innate golden immortal realm perfection, 900 billion years of lifespan. Leave 100 billion for transmission, leave 50 billion for the lifespan barrier. That amounts to using 750 billion years of lifespan for the breakthrough. Should be doable, right? The last time Guan tried to cross the tribulation, each failure cost him 50 million years of lifespan to attempt again. This time it won't take 100 million years, will it? If it really does take 100 million years of lifespan for one tribulation attempt, then Guan has 750 chances. No big deal. It's just not good to go for an all-round improvement first. Well, let's widen the gap in realms first. There's plenty of time to improve Taoist techniques later. No matter what Guan chooses, there are pros and cons, but overall, he has been on a steady path to becoming stronger, and that's the right direction. Guan looks at his cultivation level and directly invests 100 billion years of lifespan. A series of prompts quickly pop up before his eyes. You have practiced Qi absorption cultivation for 100 billion years. You forcefully attempt to break through to the heaven-balancing golden immortal realm, using the great achievement of the Great Tao Great Freedom as you wish Bible. You begin to cross the tribulation. You do not survive the celestial Tao 3 flowers void Great Tribulation. The tribulation has failed. You have practiced Qi absorption cultivation for 200 billion years. You forcefully attempt to break through to the heaven-balancing golden immortal realm, using the great achievement of the Great Tao Great Freedom as you wish Bible. You begin to cross the tribulation. You do not survive the celestial Tao 3 flowers void Great Tribulation. The tribulation has failed. Heaven-balancing golden immortal. As expected, it takes 100 million years for one tribulation attempt. Guan adjusts his mentality and starts to anticipate how strong the heaven-balancing golden immortal will be. Finally, all the prompts drop, and there's still no success in crossing the tribulation. Invest another 100 billion years. Guan stares expressionlessly at the prompts. After failure, continue. 100 billion years of lifespan. Another 100 billion years of lifespan. Finally, the prompts before Guan start to change. You have practiced Qi absorption cultivation for 56 billion years. You forcefully attempt to break through to the heaven-balancing golden immortal realm, using the great achievement of the Great Tao Great Freedom as you wish Bible. You begin to cross the tribulation. You survive the celestial Tao 3 flowers void Great Tribulation. The tribulation has been successful. Your cultivation level has broken through to the early stage of Hengtian Golden Immortal Realm. You have practiced Qi absorption cultivation for 100 billion years. Your cultivation level has increased. Finally, the breakthrough is successful. Guan lets out a sigh of relief. No matter how many years of lifespan are spent, as long as the breakthrough is successful, it's worth it. He doesn't stop there but chooses to continue investing lifespan. One breath to rise to balancing heaven golden immortal realm perfection. In the end, he still had over 280 billion years of lifespan left, leaving 100 billion for transmission back. The remaining over 180 billion years of lifespan couldn't possibly get drained by the lifespan barrier. Guan's mood becomes joyful, his lips curl up in a smile. The mighty Tao spiritual Qi floods into his body. As always, the lifespan barrier extracts Tao spiritual Qi and Tao rules in an unpredictable manner, making it impossible for the outside world to discern where the source lies. The sea of clouds in Guan's vision begins to churn more and more magnificently. As the Tao spiritual Qi enters his body, Guan feels an unprecedented comfort. His physique, from the outside in, everything is being purified. He gradually closes his eyes, immersed in this extreme pleasure, unable to extricate himself. The boundless sea of clouds becomes more turbulent, majestic and powerful, with no living creature's figure sweeping through. This world seems to have only the sea of clouds. Insights about the heaven-balancing golden immortal realm begin to burst forth in the depths of Guan's mind. His golden immortal Tao fruit also undergoes changes. Within the lifespan barrier, Guan emits a colorful strong light all over, barely revealing his figure. Tao spiritual Qi enwraps him like flood dragons, with faint streaks of flowing light, which are the Tao rules in motion. A long while. Suddenly, the sea of clouds at the horizon lifts, like a huge wave wanting to envelop the sky, or as if some enormous creature is about to break out, instilling fear in all who see it. Chapter 529 Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor Giant waves of clouds surged unknown tens of thousands of feet high, creating a boundary across the endless sea of clouds that resembled an insurmountable heavenly wall. Majestic and inviolable. Guan, who was in the midst of a breakthrough, opened his eyes and felt an overwhelming aura. Indeed, the celestial extreme nine heavens surely harbored divine creatures, and they were beings incomparable to those of the celestial spirit great world. As the sea of clouds at the horizon dispersed, Guan saw a giant eagle's head, a black eagle, the diameter of whose eyes alone exceeded tens of thousands of feet. It seemed like a divine spirit beyond the heavens, peering into the trivial matters of the lesser worlds. Safely within the lifespan barrier, Guan wasn't afraid. He sent his divine sense towards this eagle. Celestial Extreme Divine Eagle, late stage of innate golden immortal realm 38,009,982, 763/5, 000, 000, 000, 000/5, 000, 000, 000, 5 trillion years of lifespan? An existence that had lived for 38 billion years. Late stage of innate golden immortal realm. Guan was still shocked by the celestial extreme divine eagle despite his ongoing attempt to break into the heaven-balancing golden immortal realm. The first being he encountered in the celestial extreme 9 heavens was an innate golden immortal. This sparked a ludicrous conjecture in his mind. Could it be that the lowest realm of beings residing here is also at least an innate golden immortal? Go to Wuxia world. Sight he thought this to be quite likely since he could sense the eagle's terror. This colossal divine eagle emitted a powerful oppressive aura that could easily instill fear. Yet Guan could feel its fear. The reason it only popped its head out was also due to fright. Sure enough, after probing its head, the celestial extreme divine eagle retreated back into the sea of clouds, causing a tumult of fog and waves, magnificent and tempestuous. After the eagle disappeared, Guan closed his eyes and continued to perceive the realm of heaven-balancing golden immortal. As the Tao fruit began its transformation, his divine sense also improved. Even without extending his divine sense outwards, the scope of his heart-eye's vision expanded. The so-called heart eye was the vision Guan saw without deliberately thinking about the exterior, when his eyes were closed. This heart eye was miraculous, not consuming his energy or attention, as if it were an innate talent. His vision within the heart eye was rapidly expanding, even surpassing the previous range of his divine sense. With the passage of time, Guan finally stepped into the realm of heaven-balancing golden immortal. His Tao fruit became stronger, manifested not only in increased mana and senses, but predominantly in the Tao fruit world. Now, if he were to establish a Tao fruit world, it would be more stable and refined, even enabling him to harness the power of the Tao fruit world for combat. At will, he could create a world larger than the celestial spirit great world. The spiritual energy of this world derived from his mana. He was essentially the Tao fruit world itself. This further confirmed to him that the celestial spirit great thousand world was indeed the Tao fruit world of some supremely powerful entity. If all the great heaven and earth from the universe were to be gathered, it was unknown how vast they would be, but the potential size of Guan's Tao fruit world was also unknown. He hadn't established it yet, and his cultivation level was still increasing, making the Tao fruit world he could establish ever larger. After reaching the early stage of heaven-balancing golden immortal realm, the speed at which he devoured Tao spiritual chi increased, and he continued to push towards a higher realm. As Guan reached the middle stage of the heaven-balancing golden immortal realm, the boundless sea of clouds churned tumultuously. He seemed to sense something and opened his eyes again. He looked up and saw a figure appear in the sky, a woman in a white feathered dress, standing on a bed of 7-colored clouds. Her features were so delicate, seemingly the most perfect creation both within and beyond the heavens, her beautiful face exuding an indifferent aura that overlooked all living beings, her long hair coiled under the silver jade phoenix crown, which resembled a silver forest housing a proud phoenix spreading its wings and looking down upon everything. Such a beautiful woman. Even though Guan had experienced many memories of reincarnations, he was still astounded by this woman's visage. He immediately sent out a lifespan detection, but could detect nothing. That meant she was not her real body, but a manifestation of some divine skill. The white-dressed woman stood on the cloud, watching the turbulent sea of clouds, her expression indifferent like water, inscrutable to anyone trying to discern her thoughts. Guan couldn't see through her cultivation level, so he felt somewhat cautious. After about the time it takes 1 stick of incense to burn, the lady in the white dress suddenly vanished like smoke, and the 7-colored clouds under her feet dissipated as well. Guan took a deep breath. As expected, the lifespan barrier was reliable. He closed his eyes and continued to feel his own destiny. Unlike the land of reincarnation and silent extinction domain, Guan felt a clearer connection to the Tao rules while making cultivation breakthroughs in this place. This came as a pleasant surprise to him. 5 trillion years of lifespan had not been wasted. Even though he was also breaking through in the land of reincarnation, reaching the stage of a heaven-balancing golden immortal here, the degree of improvement in Guan's power would be different. The Tao rules here were just so pure and rich. Moreover, by breaking through here, Guan wouldn't affect the universe where the celestial spirit great world was located, meaning that neither the celestial spirit god nor the powerful entities lurking in the shadows would notice anything unusual. This meant he could continue to survive more securely. Continuous breakthroughs. Late stage of heaven balancing golden immortal realm. Perfection of heaven balancing golden immortal realm. When Guan reached the perfection realm, he felt that his mana, physical body, senses, heart, eyes, soul, Tao fruit and all else reached another level, making him feel that everything was different. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and looked into the distance where a distant battle was occurring. The distance was as far as from the world gate to the celestial spirit great world, incredibly far, where the sea of clouds churned, still within the celestial extreme 9 heavens. He saw a man in silver armor fighting a transformed demon. That transformed demon, appearing like a flood dragon, retained its draconic horns and wielded dual blades. Each move was full of dominance, and its demonic power was at the level of a heaven-balancing golden immortal. The man in silver armor was also at the heaven-balancing golden immortal realm, and because they possessed such cultivation levels, their fight wouldn't be disturbed by any tumult caused by Guan. The two seemed to have a deadly feud, fighting fiercely. The man in silver armor exuded an aura that reminded Guan of the celestial spirit god, as well as celestial Tao immortal gods. Could this person also be a celestial Tao immortal god? The man in silver armor wielded a long spear, each thrust containing the mystery of divine skills. If they were to battle within the celestial spirit great world, any side's great heaven and earth wouldn't withstand his divine power. With Guan's current cultivation level, he couldn't determine who would win or lose. Because the distance was too great for the naked eye to reach, Guan could only perceive using his heart eye or divine sense, unable to use lifespan detection. As Guan focused his heart eye on the divine figure and the demon, he could hear their conversation. Celestial extreme god. Do you truly wish to have a fight to the death with this emperor? Eliminating demons and slaughtering devils is my duty. The phenomena in the 9 heavens have nothing to do with this emperor. Then why are you here? This emperor simply wished to visit the 9 heavens immortal emperor. She isn't someone you can meet. Enough talk, prepare to die. The man in silver armor's attitude hardened, determined to slay the great demon. 9 heavens immortal emperor? Guan instinctively thought of the lady in the white dress he had encountered earlier, his intuition telling him that this was the title of the lady in the white dress. At his level, any intuition was not random guesswork. It must be due to a tight causality linking the name of the 9 heavens immortal emperor to the image of the lady in the white dress that he could make such a judgment. Chapter 530. Laws of the World. Guan watched the battle unfold while he waited for his cultivation level to become completely stable. During this process, the battle between the man in silver armor and the mysterious great demon in his eyes gradually slowed down. The Tao rules of the celestial extreme 9 heavens were indeed rich, providing great benefits for Guan, and his aptitude in the way of cause and effect also greatly improved. At that moment, he even considered relocating the Taoist field of the beginning list to the celestial extreme 9 heavens. Of course, he merely thought about it. While the celestial extreme 9 heavens were appealing, they were even more dangerous. So far, he hadn't seen any beings in the celestial extreme 9 heavens with a cultivation realm lower than that of an innate golden immortal. The beings here could easily extinguish the inhabitants of the Taoist field of the beginningless with a single breath, and he suspected that those of lower realms could not survive in this world. They could easily be crushed by the power of the great Tao, unless they stayed inside the dojo. After a long time, Guan's cultivation level finally stabilized. He looked at his remaining lifespan, He still had over 190 billion years left. It was not perilous, a steady breakthrough. Would you like to expend 10 billion years of lifespan to teleport back to the previous location? Guan stood up, his gaze stretched far into the distance, where the distant battle seemed not to have yielded a winner. Looking in other directions, he saw no traces of other beings. He silently chose yes, and then his figure vanished from the spot. Go to Wuxia world. Sight once again, a familiar, peculiar sensation assailed him, and his senses plunged into darkness. After a while his feet touched the ground again. He opened his eyes and found himself back in that forest, now under the veil of night. His heart eye instantly captured the entire world, spreading quickly, and his heart followed, settling down. He did not leave but continued to observe the universe, aiming to capture all the great heaven and earth within it, and imagining the combined size of them. In the universe, there were more than 1,000 great heaven and earth and many little worlds, but even so, all combined seemed quite small in Guan's eyes. He felt that now he could create a Tao fruit world that was larger than the celestial spirit great world before it fractured, indicating that his cultivation level had already surpassed that of the former master of the great world. This was to be expected. After the fragmentation of the celestial spirit great world, free immortals roamed the universe freely, making Daoist Zhongzizai immortal exceptionally rare, indicating that the celestial spirit great world wasn't as exaggerated as Guan had thought before it broke apart. Guan then looked towards the celestial spirit god under the world gate. Similar to the celestial extreme god he met at the celestial extreme 9 heavens, with the cultivation of a heaven-balancing golden immortal, yet far from reaching the perfection realm. Finally, Guan no longer felt pressure when facing the celestial spirit god. A smile appeared on his face, his mood becoming even more cheerful. Even though his cultivation level surpassed the celestial spirit god, Guan did not immediately plan to act against the celestial spirit god since there wasn't deep enmity between them, and there was clearly a much larger force behind the celestial spirit god. He would deal with the silent destruction god emperor first. That individual schemed against the Long clan and him, creating an irreconcilable deadly feud. The celestial spirit god, at most, differed in stance, acting out of their duty, not because of Guan, whereas the silent destruction god emperor acted out of self-interest. Guan stepped forward, enjoying the night scenery of the forest. The tiny insects in the dark appeared so vivid. Their world was also vivid, bearing similarities to the world humans lived in. Busy with survival, entwined with cause and effect. Great thousand world, great heaven and earth, little world, and the world of insects. All these worlds had their strengths and weaknesses, but all followed a set of rules. In the darkness, a mantis slowly emerged from beneath a leaf, creeping closer to a cicada. At dawn, the sunlight broke through heaven and earth. Between the mountains lay a lake, enshrouded in fog, resembling a paradise from the human world. Leia stood by the lake, holding the 9 extreme sacred heart sword, his gaze fixed on a man in black robes in the distance, his hair disheveled, resembling an evil demon. The man in black robes was actually the transformation of the silent destruction god emperor, who was pondering the ways of the sacred heart sword Tao. Leia had always been wary of this man, but the sword annihilation ancestor dared not drive him away. This man even taught him divine skills, so he could only endure in silence. Watching the man in the black robe enthralled, Leia was very curious. What was this man's background? What was he scheming? Why did he want to study the sacred heart sword Tao, but not go to the river of sword Tao? The sword annihilation ancestor had once taken Leia to the river of sword Tao. The splendor and dazzle of it had left Leia with unforgettable memories. He really wanted to visit the river of sword Tao again, but the sword annihilation ancestor said that with his cultivation level, he could not stay long in the river of sword Tao. He wondered if junior brother Gu had ever been there. Suddenly, Leia thought of Guan. Although Guan had revealed his true identity, in his heart, Guan would always be his junior brother. It wasn't that he wanted to take advantage, but he felt that the title of junior brother Gu made him feel closer. The supporting Tao sword venerable seemed too distant, and he only felt respect towards him. As soon as he thought of Guan, Li Ya's lips involuntarily lifted in a smile. He and Guan had grown up together, feeling that Guan was not pretending. Perhaps Guan in this life was just an identity of supporting Dao Sword Venerable's reincarnation. Because of this, he trusted that the Guan in his memories was more real than the supporting Dao Sword Venerable. Suddenly, the Sword Annihilation ancestor appeared behind the silent destruction god Emperor, and the two seemed to be communicating telepathically. Leah could not hear them, and soon, the two disappeared from the spot. Seeing this, Leah did not think further, and continued practicing his swordsmanship. If he wanted to catch up to junior brother Gu, had become the world's top swordsman first. He did not notice that behind him at the top of the trees, Guan was standing on the leaves, silently watching him. Mountains behind and mist rising from the lake. The scene was so aesthetically peaceful and serene. Guan, having just achieved a breakthrough, thought of Leah, so he came to see him. Looking at Leah, he recalled the feelings and ambitions of their youth. One must not forget one's original aspirations. Reminiscing about the past occasionally could also make his heart more resolute. Guan decided to wait until the silent destruction god Emperor had completely passed down the divine skills to Leah. Then he would take action against him. As for whether killing the silent destruction god Emperor would provoke a stronger existence, he did not care, since the world gate separated them from other great thousand worlds. His intuition told him that the strongest in the battle court would not be much stronger than the silent destruction god Emperor. Otherwise, the pursuit of Longqing would not have been delayed until today. A breeze lifted Guan's garments. A leaf fluttered up from beside him, spiraling toward the celestial vault. Seasons came and went. 30 years passed swiftly. Inside the Taoist field of the beginningless, Guan watched Lvcien practice martial arts, with an Xian by his side, discussing the recent troubles faced by the Qiankuan sect. The Qiankuan sect was already the overlord of the nine-spirit continent, but its development always met with troubles. Over the years, an Xian frequently aided people like Yi Qingshan. Now, with an overseas sect targeting the nine-spirit continent, and supposedly an old monster from the celestial and earthly immortals sitting within that sect. Celestial and earthly immortals were considered legendary to the Qiankuan sect, and even an Xian could not handle them. They could only rely on Guan. Guan, staring at Lvcien, spoke softly. You can help the Qiankuan sect, but don't help them expand their territory. If a great cultivator breaks into the continent, then you can make your move. An Xian pouted helplessly, saying, Master, is whether I intervene the point? I can't beat them. Chapter 531, Legend. Extinguished by one hand upon hearing Nzin's words, Guan pulled the fate pen that was tucked at his waist and handed it to an Xian. An Xian was stunned, holding the fate pen and looking at Guan with confusion. She'd seen Guan carry this pen often and was accustomed to its presence. Yet since she had not felt any fluctuations of spiritual power from the fate pen, she never thought of it as a magical treasure. You can use it for now, and I will refine a magical treasure for you later, Guan said. His gaze fixed on Lvcien, his tone casual. Having been with Guan for a long time, an Xian wouldn't hold back her questions, and she quickly asked, But how do I use this? As she spoke, she lifted the fate pen in her hand and waved it through the air, but there wasn't even ink. When you encounter someone who must be killed, it will show its power, Guan answered, which made an Xian look forward to using the fate pen. She knew that Guan wouldn't play tricks on her. This pen was surely powerful. She immediately bowed in respect, and then left with the fate pen. Guan turned his head to watch an Xian, his eyes filled with profound meaning. Having helped people like Yi Qingshan and others for so long, she had gradually become accustomed to it. Although it had not affected her own cultivation, in her heart, Yi Qingshan and the others were like her disciples. Not all relationships in the world were perfect. Should there come a day when Yi Qingshan and the rest pass away, she hoped she wouldn't take it too hard. However, this was also an inevitable experience for those on the path of immortal cultivation. It couldn't be said to be good or bad, but experiencing all human emotions could shape one's Tao heart. Go to Wuxia world. Sight after an Xian had left, Lvcien opened his eyes and asked, Master, what exactly is this divine skill? It doesn't seem like a divine skill, it's very mysterious, and even though I am cultivating, I can't clearly describe its profound mysteries. After entering the Taoist field of the beginningless, LV started to address Guan as master, and Guan did not refuse since their relationship hadn't reached the level of brotherhood before. Guan looked up at the celestial vault and said, "Indeed, it's not a divine skill. Once you master it, you will understand what it is. It will help you dominate this part of the human world." Upon hearing this, LV instinctively asked, "Just this part of the human world?" Guan turned his head towards him, his smile ambiguous, and said, "Can your eyes contain the entire human world?" LV was taken aback, and could only offer an awkward smile. Guan's gaze drifted into the distance, his face revealing a look of anticipation. It was finally coming to an end. Under the vast sky, peaks were emerging from the sea of clouds, and atop one of these mountains stood Liya, Sword Annihilation Ancestor, and Silent Destruction God Emperor side by side. Liya looked towards the Silent Destruction God Emperor and asked, "Senior, since you are about to leave, can you not reveal your true identity?" During the years of teachings from the Silent Destruction God Emperor, his reverence for him had only deepened. He even felt that the Silent Destruction God Emperor was not weaker than Guan. With guidance from the Divine Emperor, he had not only mastered one divine skill, but also gained a deeper understanding of the path to cultivation. Once, when the Silent Destruction God Emperor was away, he secretly asked Sword Annihilation Ancestor just how formidable the Divine Emperor was. Sword Annihilation Ancestor had said something that he couldn't forget. Apart from Heavenly Tao, he is the strongest. He had asked at the time, how did he compare to the supporting Tao Sword Venerable? Sword Annihilation Ancestor just shook his head and said nothing. Afterwards, Liya clearly felt that Sword Annihilation Ancestor had become even more respectful towards Silent Destruction God Emperor, and he suspected the ancestor might have pledged allegiance to the Silent Destruction God Emperor as his master. He dared not ask too much. After all, before he became a disciple, Sword Annihilation Ancestor had mentioned that he bore a great cause and effect, and he didn't want to bear this burden prematurely. When you become powerful enough to roam the world invincibly, and have set foot in outer heaven, living a carefree life, you will learn of my legend. The Silent Destruction God Emperor said, looking into the distance, his tone completely calm without a trace of emotion. What a poser! Liya thought to himself. Yet he longed for such an attitude. How many more years would he have to cultivate before he could speak such words with confidence? Sword Annihilation Ancestor followed, saying, "I will do my best to train him to that level." "It doesn't matter," the Silent Destruction God Emperor said. "I don't care how high his achievements will be in the future. The divine skills have been imparted, and we are clear of debt and responsibility." With those words, the Silent Destruction God Emperor stepped forward, his footsteps landing in the air as if an invisible path lay beneath his feet. Before Liya could even begin to marvel at the Silent Destruction God Emperor's dominance, suddenly, a figure appeared before them. Slap! A hand pressed down on the Silent Destruction God Emperor's shoulder, rendering him immobile. The pupils of the Silent Destruction God Emperor suddenly contracted, and in an instant, his face was shrouded in dark energy. Dark armor enshrouded him, as he transformed into his true form. Even so, he was horrified to discover that he couldn't break free. The mysterious palm on his shoulder suppressed his Tao fruit, halting everything within his Tao fruit world. Both Liya and the Sword Annihilation Ancestor were startled by the sudden appearance of the figure. The Sword Annihilation Ancestor wanted to speak, but an extreme terror pressed down upon him, leaving him unable to move or speak. Liya also experienced the suppression, but he wasn't panicked because the figure of the newcomer was forever unforgettable to him. It was the supporting Tao Sword Venerable. No. It was Guan, using the Demon Shadow Divine skill. Wrapped in dark purple demonic chi, Guan looked even more sinister than the Silent Destruction God Emperor. He stood at the edge of a cliff, a single hand pressing down the Silent Destruction God Emperor suspended in midair, preventing him from advancing further. All of heaven and earth seemed to quiet at once. "Your legend?" Guan's voice rose, and his right hand squeezed. The Silent Destruction God Emperor was annihilated in an instant, turning into a wisp of black chi. which then condensed in Guan's palm. The powerful silent destruction god emperor was completely defenseless in Guan's grasp. Seeing the silent destruction god emperor being annihilated instantly, both Li Ye and the sword annihilation ancestor's eyes widened. Guan turned his head. Although they couldn't see his face clearly, Li Ye and the sword annihilation ancestor felt as if they were being seen through. Especially the sword annihilation ancestor, who was extremely fearful. A voice echoed in the sword annihilation ancestor's mind. You shall not utter a single word about today's events. With the voice's fall, Guan vanished into thin air. As he disappeared, the terrifying suppressive force also vanished. The sword annihilation ancestor felt like a great weight had been lifted, but he was still shaking with residual fear. Li Ye stood still on the spot. The words of the silent destruction god emperor still echoed in his ears. Go to outer heaven to hear his legend. The legend, could it be extinguished by Guan? With a mere hand? Li Ye was caught in a shock. Only a moment ago, he had been inwardly convinced that the silent destruction god emperor was the only one who could possibly be stronger than Guan. And yet Guan had appeared and extinguished the silent destruction god emperor. At this moment, he even harbored a ridiculous suspicion. Could it be that Guan had heard his inner thoughts, and that's why he appeared? Then he dismissed this suspicion, thinking himself foolish to come up with such an absurd reason. He began to feel confused. What enmity did Guan have with the silent destruction god emperor? He turned his head to look at the sword annihilation ancestor, and his expression changed accordingly. After so many years together, he had never seen the sword annihilation ancestor show such a look. Fear, despair, relief, nervousness, and more. Seeing the sword annihilation ancestor with such a complex and troubled expression, Li Ye felt as if something inside him had shattered. How could the master he revered be less formidable than junior brother Gu? He suddenly felt lost. Chapter 532. Ascending to Yellow Heaven. Emperor of Absolute Thought. Li Ye struggled to adjust his emotions. He looked at sword annihilation ancestor, cautiously asking, Master, are you all right? Although the image of his master had collapsed in his heart, the many years of guidance were a kindness he could not forget. Sword annihilation ancestor came back to his senses. He took a deep breath and said, I'm all right, but you must forget today's events, or it will bring about great trouble. He knew very well how terrifying the silent destruction god emperor was, and this one was the original entity, having the capability to suppress the silent destruction god emperor so easily. The Tao practice of that being just now. Sword annihilation ancestor couldn't help but tremble. He even dared not think deeper. The pressure Li Ye felt was far less than that of sword annihilation ancestor. He didn't feel that sword annihilation ancestor was too cowardly. After all, considering his relationship with Guan would definitely take care of him. TSK, junior brother Gu sure knows how to scare my master, truly not giving any face. Li Ye felt emotional. He also couldn't help but wonder, just how high was junior brother Gu's cultivation level? How could such an unrivaled powerful existence be so easily defeated by junior brother Gu? Li Ye couldn't figure it out. He just couldn't understand. How many years had Guan cultivated? And how many hardships had he endured to become so powerful? Li Ye couldn't imagine. Go to Wuxia world. Sight sword annihilation ancestor also couldn't imagine. Even as a profound yuan-free immortal, in his knowledge, apart from the celestial spirit god guarding the world gate, the silent destruction god emperor was the most powerful being. Previously, supporting Tao Sword Venerable had exterminated the incarnation of the silent destruction god emperor. And when the silent destruction god emperor himself arrived, it frightened supporting Tao Sword Venerable to leave the celestial spirit great world, undeniably proving the power of supporting Tao Sword Venerable. But now, Sword Annihilation Ancestor could accept the defeat of the silent destruction god emperor, but could not accept that the silent destruction god emperor had no power to fight back. The celestial spirit great world became a frightening place in the eyes of Sword Annihilation Ancestor. The once center of the great thousand world indeed hid unfathomable and terrifying cause and effect. He dared not be curious about who that being was, only hoping he could forget. Having lived for so many years, he knew very well that even without speaking, remembering certain things could also bring boundless trouble. On the other side, Guan had already returned to the Taoist field of the beginningless. The reason he spared Sword Annihilation Ancestor was firstly due to Li Ya's face, and secondly because he had ways to eliminate the cause and effect, ensuring the incident wouldn't be spread. He arrived in his courtyard, lying on a chair. He raised his right hand and flipped it open, revealing a black pearl, which was transformed from the Silent Destruction God Emperor. The black pearl was not the true body of the Silent Destruction God Emperor, but was suppressed by Guan's power of cause and effect. Within the black pearl, the Silent Destruction God Emperor was helpless, unable to escape, only to be handled by Guan. The Silent Destruction God Emperor had possessed so many of the Long Clan's juniors. Guan couldn't just kill him. He needed to understand the reasons. He began to soul-search the Silent Destruction God Emperor. The flowers and grass in the courtyard slightly swayed, and sparrows chirped on the old trees, enhancing the liveliness of the courtyard. Shen Jun came back carrying a bamboo basket. She was in a good mood, humming a little tune she had heard from the folk. When she saw Guan admiring a black pearl, she couldn't help but ask, "What is the origin of the pearl in your hand?" She was just curious and didn't think much about it. Usually, Guan liked to fiddle with little gadgets, making others feel cultivation was easy for the highly skilled, with no need for daily practice. "I picked it up in the river." Guan casually replied. His heart, however, was filled with murderous intent. Through soul-searching, he saw the tragic conditions of generations of the Long Clan's talented members. The lighter cases were possession. The severe ones endured endless torment, being tortured to death alive. The Silent Destruction God Emperor was not reincarnated into the Long Clan, but targeted the exceptionally talented disciples of the Long Clan for possession, thus seizing their lives. If the possession failed, he would find ways to take their bloodline, making the victims endure unimaginable pain. As Guan had guessed, the Silent Destruction God Emperor had indeed targeted the Long Clan's bloodline because of Long Zhan. The Divine Emperor had noticed Long Zhan when he roamed the universe. He found Long Zhan's growth rate astounding, hence always kept him under covert observation. When Long Zhan crossed the 9 heavens of the immortal path, he felt threatened, thus making his move to execute him. Afterward, he took Long Xian as his disciple and assisted Long Xian in rebuilding the battle court, having a genuine mentor-disciple bond with Long Xian, without ever attempting possession. Later, Long Xian was killed by a supreme being, and the Silent Destruction God Emperor could not avenge him, which deeply provoked the Silent Destruction God Emperor. Afterwards, Long Xin's grandson exhibited a talent no less impressive than Long Zhan's. He then became greedy, continuously searching and continually failing, making him more obstinate, eventually leading to a great disaster. The one who killed Long Xian came from ascending to Yellow Heaven, known as Emperor of Absolute Thought. In the memory of the Silent Destruction God Emperor, at that time, he had yet to reach the middle stage of the innate golden immortal realm. Facing the Emperor of Absolute Thought, he was completely powerless and only managed to escape by using a secret technique. After that, he never encountered the Emperor of Absolute Thought again, and he dared not venture to ascending to Yellow Heaven, which seemed to be a forbidden place to him. Besides, Guan also learned about another existence, Immortal Emperor. This person was the Lord of the War Court, initiating the war that overthrew the power of the Long Clan. He was also the longest ruling entity of the battle court, claiming he could be eternally immortal as long as a living being could chant his title, allowing him to resurrect. The Silent Destruction God Emperor was also wary of the Immortal Emperor. The two never clashed. It's worth mentioning that the Immortal Emperor was not interested in the Long Clan, spending years in seclusion. It was his offspring who, fearing the Long Clan's resurgence, began the extermination. As Guan continuously extracted memories, Shen Jun sat on a nearby stool, quietly watching him. For some reason, she felt the black pearl in Guan's hands had a not-so-simple origin. Moreover, Guan's current state gave her an indescribable feeling of profound mystery. She felt like painting. Hence, she took out a palette and set it up in front of her, then hung up a sheet of paper and took out her ink and brush. Guan noticed her actions but said nothing. Time quickly passed. After a long while, After Guan finished plundering the memories of the silent destruction god emperor, he clenched his right hand, shattering the black pearl. You have successfully seized the lifespan of the silent destruction god emperor, middle stage of innate golden immortal realm. 415,098,273,628 years, 15 billion years of lifespan. Upon seeing this prompt, dark thoughts of slaying innate golden immortals arose in Guan's heart. But he quickly suppressed them. To live to the innate golden immortal realm, one must surely not be ordinary. Like the silent destruction god emperor, his master, close friends, and disciples were all extraordinary. Just killing him was manageable, as Guan could erase the cause and effect, but if he killed too many, it would always lead to major trouble. Regardless, eradicating the silent destruction god emperor resolved a great concern for Guan. After that, he could fully enjoy life and watch his disciples grow. Guan turned his head to look at Shenzhen nearby, curious about the kind of painting she had created. He saw Shenzhen holding the brush, her expression slightly blank, completely fixed in front of the palette, motionless. Guan immediately stood up and walked over to her, making his way to her side, looking at the drawing paper with squinting eyes. The paper depicted a man with white hair and blood clothes, standing atop a mountain peak, gazing up at the sun, moon, and stars. Although Shenzhen's drawing was not very clear, Guan could recognize the person instantly. Long Xin's grandson, Long Jun's son Long Mia. The character extinction in Long Mia was derived from the silent destruction god emperor, who had visited him when he was just born. At that time, the silent destruction god emperor hadn't yet realized Long Mia's talent. This scene in the painting had not appeared in the memories of the silent destruction god emperor. After the silent destruction god emperor captured Long Mia, and before he had attempted possession, they encountered a great Dao storm on the path of the great Dao, which obliterated Long Mia while severely injuring the silent destruction god emperor. Chapter 533 Buddha Immortal. Could Long Mia be alive? Guan gazed at the painting by Shenzhen and speculated thus in his heart. Indeed, in the memories of the silent destruction god emperor, he and the battle court were doing their utmost to slaughter the Long clan. Yet descendants of the Long clan always managed to escape. Only when Long Qing came into the picture did the silent destruction god emperor seem to hold some trepidation, beginning to observe secretly. Could it be that Long Mia was protecting the descendants of the Long clan from the shadows? As Guan pondered this, he lifted his hand and gently patted Shenzhen's shoulder. Shenzhen suddenly snapped back to reality. Subconsciously, she turned her head to see Guan, and upon recognizing him, she let out a sigh of relief. She spoke up. Just now, I felt as if I'd fallen into some sort of magic barrier. I saw a person who kept staring at me. It was so frightening. During the conversation, she glanced over at her own painting, fear showing in her eyes for the first time. Guan asked, "What else did you see?" Shenzhen began to describe the magical barrier she had experienced. Below the mountains in the painting was a sea of blood with bones bobbing up and down. A sight so startling it was unbearable. The blood sea felt so oppressive to her that she couldn't bring herself to depict it. The man in blood clothes standing atop the mountain peak gave Shenzhen an endless sense of desolation. Even though she couldn't see this man's past, she could feel the deep vengeance of the blood sea he bore in his lonely, unsupported existence. Go to Wuxia world. Sight. Listening to Shenzhen describe the feelings Long Mia incited in her, Guan sighed internally. It appeared the karmic resolution for the Long clan hadn't been completely settled yet. After Shenzhen had finished speaking, Guan said teasingly, "It seems your enlightenment could also bring about a heart demon. You'll have to be careful in the future." Shenzhen nodded, but she was somewhat perplexed in her heart. She had been looking at Guan when she painted this scroll, which meant the person in the painting likely had some kind of connection to Guan. Seeing that Guan didn't wish to speak, she refrained from asking more. Over the years, through Guan's guidance, she had painted many pictures, and was well aware that Guan had an extraordinary background. Precisely because of this, she refrained from asking too much, so as not to cause trouble for Guan. After chatting for a while, Guan turned and went back inside. He still needed to reflect deeply on the memories of the silent destruction god emperor, and contemplate when to make a move against the battle court. The battle court was created by his reincarnation body. Now that it had been usurped and was used for evil, he had to resolve this karmic thread. After watching Guan return to the house, Shenzhen's gaze fell back on the painting, her expression turning curious. How strange. Why does he resemble Guan somewhat? Shenzhen mumbled to herself, suddenly forming a bold speculation. Could the man in the painting be one of Guan's past lives? Thinking this, her heart suddenly felt uncomfortable. Guan was always so kind to those around him, never losing his temper. He was always willing to shoulder the troubles of others. Yet he himself had endured hardships unimaginable to ordinary people. Shenzhen had always found Guan to be great, able to treat people well, and even rescue all living beings. But as her realm grew higher, her admiration for Guan only increased. Guan always managed to refresh her view of him. Shenzhen looked at the person in the painting, her gaze once again becoming unfocused. The yellow sand filled the sky, and the windstorm raged like raging floodwaters and ferocious beasts. An ancient temple lay amidst the sandstorm. Zhang Buku, his white hair tied behind his head, pushed open the main gate, entered the Buddha hall, and then proceeded to close the door. The Divine Exotic Realm Master and Divine Exotic Ghost Kings were meditating around the room, each one pale and weak, with the Divine Exotic Realm Master's face covered in bloodstains, looking very frightening. The Divine Exotic Ghost King known as Zhen Ludao opened his eyes to look at Zhang Buku and asked feebly, "Have you found anything?" Zhang Buku shook his head and said, "It's endless and desolate, without a living soul. The sun overhead grows ever hotter, and at this rate, we will surely be refined away." As these words were spoken, the Divine Exotic Ghost Kings all opened their eyes. Damn it, now we're really screwed. I have been saying we shouldn't chase after that immortal fate. It's unreliable, and given our unique powers, we can't act together. What's the use of saying this now? Master, at least say something. We can't just sit here and accept our fate. That bastard is definitely hiding in the shadows, waiting for us to be powerless to resist. If we fall into his hands, it will be worse than dying under the blazing sun. The Buddha hall fell into noisy chaos, but Zhang Buku had grown accustomed to it. He looked up at the large Buddha statue behind him, which was covered in dust and appeared so ancient. Ever since he had entered this temple, Zhang Buku had felt there was something off with this Buddha statue. Although the Divine Exotic Realm Master and the Divine Exotic Ghost Kings had all checked it, he still felt uncomfortable. He had the feeling of being watched by a malicious gaze. The Divine Exotic Realm Master noticed something wrong with Zhang Buku's expression and asked, "Are you okay?" Zhang Buku looked at him and shook his head. "I'm fine, but I feel there must be a deeper intention for that person leading us into this realm. It's probably not just to wait for us to die, because we're no match for him now." As these words came out, the Divine Exotic Ghost Kings stopped their bickering and all turned to look at him. Zhang Buku took a deep breath and said, "My friends, on the way here, you all saw those Buddha heads in the desert, as if left there on purpose by some being, guiding us to this temple. Maybe our chance of survival lies within this temple." Hearing this, the Divine Exotic Ghost Kings all stood up, looking around. The Divine Exotic Realm Master thought it made sense, and turned his head to observe the surroundings. Slowly, a heavy silence fell upon the Buddha hall. After a while, everyone's gaze was drawn to the large Buddha statue. Defying the 9 netherworlds, Anxious asked, "Do any of you feel something is off?" His words broke the silence, prompting the other Divine Exotic Ghost Kings to speak up, sharing their feelings as if the liveliness could drive away the unease in their hearts. Zhang Buku's pupils suddenly dilated, his eyes fixed on the large Buddha statue's eyes. Nearly touching the ceiling, the statue's face was shrouded in darkness, making its features blurry. Zhang Buku saw that its eyes were smiling. This sent a chill through his body, a fear arising instinctively in his heart. Soon, the Divine Exotic Ghost Kings quieted down too, as they also noticed the statue smiling a cold, evil grin, sensing a greed that seemed to emanate from it. They slowly gathered together, shoulder to shoulder. The Divine Exotic Realm Master stared at the large Buddha statue, took a deep breath, and asked aloud, "May I ask which senior rests here? If we have disturbed you, please show us a way out." As his words trailed off, the eyes of the Buddha statue twisted into two sly slits, all the more eerie. Do you want the immortal fate? It lies right here. An eerily cold laughter rang out, making Zhang Buku and the others grow even more wary, pressing even closer together. Despite his fear, the divine exotic realm master asked in a steady voice, "We are willing to forsake the immortal fate. May I inquire if the senior will allow us to leave?" "Of course not." The voice drew out the last word before suddenly shouting loudly, startling the divine exotic ghost kings into constant trembling. The Buddha statue's gaze settled on Zhang Buku and sneered, "I am a Buddha immortal. I need much flesh and blood to revive, though I have no wish to resurrect. One of you will be chosen to inherit my legacy." One of the divine exotic ghost kings asked bravely, "And what of the others?" The Buddha immortal turned to him and replied with a hideous laugh, "Naturally, they will be devoured by my inheritor." The hall fell into silence again. Zhang Buku felt uneasy under the Buddha immortal's gaze from before, intuitively sensing that they were being toyed with. He might well be selected as the inheritor, only to be attacked by everyone else. The causality tied to silent destruction vanished unexpectedly. "I have no idea who killed him. You've come just in time for me to choose an inheritor, so I can be free." The Buddha immortal's voice sounded again, this time as if talking to himself. Chapter 534. The Realm of Eternal Indestructibility. The Buddha immortal's muttering made Zhang Buku and the others even more nervous, for they could feel the Buddha immortal's urgency. The more so, the more dangerous it was for them. The Buddha statue that the Buddha immortal had transformed into was slightly trembling, as if it were about to crack. "Escape!" The divine exotic realm master immediately gave the order, and almost instantly, the door was breached. Zhang Buku and the others shot out like lightning, darting into the overwhelming yellow sand. "You think this is what kind of place? Escape? You will soon find that killing each other is easier than escaping, for I have already dissolved the causal bonds between you. From this moment onwards, you are all independent beings." The voice of the Buddha immortal resounded, and Zhang Buku as well as the divine exotic ghost kings could feel the restraints on themselves disappear. They had obtained the freedom they had longed for. However, they were not relieved. Instead, they were more afraid. How terrifying must be the cultivation level of a Buddha immortal, who could easily dissolve divine exotic causality. Even Zhang Buku, who was afraid of neither heaven nor earth, felt despair. Having left the celestial spirit great world for thousands of years, having endured so many hardships and dangers, is it really going to end today? In Zhang Buku's mind emerged the faces of Guan and Liya. Not knowing how those two were getting by now, such thoughts came quickly and left quickly in his mind. He did not have the luxury to think about so much. Go to Wuxia world. Sight. After killing the silent destruction god emperor, Guan's life resumed its tranquility. The celestial spirit god also made no move, still sitting under the world gate. The 7 subordinates of the silent destruction god emperor had not noticed anything amiss. In their view, it was impossible for anything to happen to the silent destruction god emperor, and since their cultivation level was far below that of the silent destruction god emperor, they could not deduce the silent destruction god emperor's causality. The fall of the silent destruction god emperor, capable of overturning the celestial spirit great world, did not cause any impact on this world. The world's currents surge and ebb. There are always those who call the wind and summon the rain falling from power, and there are always new figures emerging, dominating the scene. Time flew by swiftly. 2,000 years passed in a blink of an eye. The human world has entered a new chapter. This year, just after the new year, Immortal Seeking Island. Guan was strolling on the street, an ex-cyan and blood prison great saint following behind, with Hu Shaojian walking in front, bending over, continuously introducing the situation along the way for the three of them. Hu Shaojian, who was over 8,000 years old, had also reached nirvana, and now held a very high status on Immortal Seeking Island. Many people seeing him so respectfully guiding others, could not help casting curious glances at Guan. However, as soon as they turned their heads, the image of Guan was gone from their minds, leaving them puzzled, but it wasn't long before even that puzzlement disappeared. Guan, looking at the bustling immortal-seeking island, had a smile on his face. After leaving the Supreme Sect, Guan still maintained his relationship with Human World Peak and Immortal-Seeking Island. Both powers considered him a reclusive great cultivator, and no one associated him with supporting Tao Sword Venerable. The great heaven and earth is too vast. How many great cultivators were there under the heavens? Like carps crossing the river, the supporting Tao Sword Venerable had already been forgotten by the world. Hu Xiaojian kept talking, all the while observing Guan's expression. Seeing that Guan was satisfied, he felt very excited. Although he often saw Guan, today was different. Immortal-Seeking Island was hosting its once-century grand event. He was personally in charge of handling it. The street was full of trading stalls, with cultivation treasures as far as the eye could see. Everything that met the eye was his accomplishment, so naturally, he hoped Guan would praise him. Actually, by now he no longer needed to get anything from Guan. But he knew why he could have all this. He cherished it, and was determined to cling to Guan's coattails for a lifetime, serving him. He wasn't afraid that Guan wouldn't command him to do things. He was afraid that Guan would forget him. "You've done very well, keep it up," Guan said with a smile. Immortal-Seeking Island was also important to him. Almost all of his medicinal herb seeds came from Immortal-Seeking Island, as did the rewards he bestowed upon his disciples. Despite his high realm, he didn't want to revert to sneaky deeds. He wanted to speed up his path to gaining strength. And it wasn't difficult, but what he desired was to grow stronger steadily and without remorse. If he could achieve that, it would be even better. "I will definitely do better." Hu Xiaojian was as excited as if he were on a chicken blood stimulant. Guan's gaze fell upon a stall where an old man sat on the ground, disheveled, with a young boy squatting beside him. This elder was familiar to Guan. He had paid attention to him before. Qi Jiuxiao, a genius from the Star Sea congregations, had once competed for Divine Exotic City on the Taitsong continent. Guan had saved Anhao at the time, and also incidentally rescued Qi Jiuxiao and Qi Bei, who were accompanying Anhao. This Qi Jiuxiao was no ordinary figure, stepping into the Nirvana realm at the age of 500. What an exaggeration! In terms of the speed of his early cultivation, he was even faster than Anhao, mainly due to the resources of the Star Sea congregations at his disposal. If reaching the Nirvana realm first were to determine talent, then the offspring of the immortal dynasty born in the Nirvana realm could not all be said to possess more talent than Anhao, could they? Guan could sense that Qi Jiuxiao was injured. While his realm remained, he was unable to gather mana within his body. The boy beside him was his progeny left in the human world, now by his side. Thousands of years had passed, and the situation in the human world had continually changed. The Star Sea congregations had encountered upheaval, with many internal families being purged, including the Qi family. The Star Sea congregations were of no concern to Guan, and he had no intention of caring. Had it not been for people like Anhao, profound celestial intent, Liya and Zhang Buku, who had gone to the Star Sea congregations to cultivate, he wouldn't even bother paying attention to the organization. Guan simply glanced and then withdrew his gaze, continuing forward. Qi Jiuxiao didn't notice Guan's attention, his mind preoccupied with concerns that the bustling streets could not dispel. "Master, how long will we stay here?" the boy next to him asked, his eyes falling on Guan and others. Feeling that these people had an extraordinary status, their aura completely different from the passers-by. Qi Jiuxiao, with his head lowered, softly said, "Until the Immortal-Seeking Conference ends." Upon hearing this, the boy sighed, looking at the lively and bustling street, full of longing in his eyes. Since his birth, he had been alone, and it was only last year that he became Qi Jiuxiao's disciple. He cherished his current life, but also longed for a better path in immortal cultivation. After spending half a day at Immortal-Seeking Island, Guan took an Exion and Blood Prison Great Saint away. The two had purchased many items on the island, planning to bring them back for the others in the dojo. Back at the dojo, Guan stood before the Mountain of 10,000 Swords and retrieved the treasured swords that he had selected at Immortal-Seeking Island, embedding them into the mountain. The Mountain of 10,000 Swords now bristled with treasured swords, each containing its own unique sword intent. After placing the swords, Guan began to admire his creation. Over the years, aside from comprehending the great Tao, He had not neglected the Sword Tao. He could now connect with the Sacred Heart Sword Tao created by Yang Xian. After all, Yang Xian was him. So controlling the Sacred Heart Sword Tao was not difficult for him. The Sacred Heart Sword Tao, everlasting within the river of Sword Tao, sparked Guan's interest in the river of Sword Tao. If the Tao could become a river, then it could be everlasting. This mystery fascinated him. He hoped that his mountain of 10,000 swords could reach the state of being eternal too. After watching for a while, Guan suddenly felt something, his pupils reflecting a scene. There was a great battle upon the river of Sword Tao. Both combatants possessed the cultivation level of profound Yuan-free immortal. Their Sword Tao prowess was incomparable, not even weaker than the Sword Annihilation ancestor. Guan observed their Sword Tao clash and understood their complex causality. Both hailed from different great thousand worlds, both believers of the Sword Tao, and both looking up to the Sacred Heart Sword Tao. As the long years passed by, Yang Xian was no more, but his Sword Tao had become an eternal existence. Chapter 535. The Calamity of a Strange Goat in the Void of Endless Darkness. A sparkling river flowed quietly, with neither its source nor its end in sight. This was the river of Sword Tao, situated within the space of the Great Tao. There were no stars here, no worlds, only endless darkness, and it was the only light in that darkness. The river of Sword Tao was vast and boundless, radiating an ancient and eternal aura. Somewhere along the river of Sword Tao, two figures were engaging in battle, their forms weaving and sword chi crisscrossing. Their sword chi was incredibly powerful, but when it fell into the vast river of Sword Tao, not even a splash was raised. As the scene zoomed in, looking from behind the two men, the river of Sword Tao seemed like an immense ocean, endless from any direction one looked. The collision of two strands of sword chi, carrying the dominant might that could shatter heavens and earth, forced both figures to retreat in unison, creating a distance of 10,000 miles between them. One of them, dressed in a blue robe and holding a wooden sword, directed his gaze toward his distant opponent, squinting as he spoke. "Such a nimble sword. Do you hail from the Kanglan sword domain?" The other sword cultivator, dressed in white robes, held a long, slender black sword in his hand, the blade glinting with flowing light as if water slid across it. In response to the inquiry, the white-robed sword cultivator snorted coldly. "Your sword carries a fighting spirit. I didn't expect Battle Court to have people dedicated to the Sword Tao. I had thought Battle Court was all full of obsessive lunatics." The blue-robed sword cultivator answered. "Continuing our fight won't decide a victor." The white-robed sword cultivator remained silent, his eyes filled with dissatisfaction. In the Kanglan sword domain, his Sword Tao might not be the strongest, but he was invincible amongst his peers in the same realm, capable of sweeping through opposition even when entering a new great realm. But today, he had met his match, and to make matters feel worse, his opponent came from the very battle court he disdained. For a force like the battle court to produce a swordsmanship genius he could not defeat was incredibly frustrating for him. The blue-robed sword cultivator was about to speak again when he suddenly turned his head. And not just him. The white-robed sword cultivator also glanced in the same direction. They both looked towards the same direction, only to see sword chi surging out from within the river of Sword Tao, amassing into a figure on the surface of the river. CTH Nellfire. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Seeing this figure, both sword cultivators frowned simultaneously, a sense of unease filling their hearts. Far in front of Mountain of 10,000 Swords, Guan also saw this figure. He was unable to deduce the figure's causality, signifying the person's high level of cultivation. Under Guan's gaze, the mysterious figure slew two profound Yuan-free immortals with a single slash, then turned and walked into the river of Sword Tao, disappearing from sight. Although he couldn't see through the figure's causal origins, he felt the use of the Sacred Heart Sword Tao. Speaking of which, even the silent destruction god Emperor could not progress in his path upon seeing the Sacred Heart Sword Tao. Just how alluring was the draw of the Sacred Heart Sword Tao. Although Guan could control the Sacred Heart Sword Tao, he merely borrowed its power, and was unable to extract the Sacred Heart Sword Tao from the river of Sword Tao. He could allow others to cultivate the Sacred Heart Sword Tao or forbid it. However, before he integrated the memories of Yang Xian, someone had already begun cultivating the Sacred Heart Sword Tao, and he had no desire to cut off their progress. Guan retracted his gaze and continued to stand still in place. After a long time, Chen Chuan arrived beside Guan and said, "Master, I have encountered a bottleneck." Guan spoke softly. "The time has not come." Chen Chuan was taken aback. He scratched his head and said awkwardly, "Master, I haven't even said anything yet. The hardest part of immortal cultivation is enduring the years. To resist loneliness and inner restlessness is even more difficult than breaking through realms," Guan said casually. After speaking, he turned and walked away. Chen Chuan followed his steps and said, "I heard disciples from Qiankuan sect discussing someone named Liya, who wields the 9 Extreme Sacred Heart Sword. Is the 9 Extreme Sacred Heart Sword the one I wanted to obtain thousands of years ago?" With his current Dao practice, he didn't need to leave the Taoist field of the beginningless to peek into Qiankuan sect. Unable to leave the dojo, Qiankuan sect thus became his channel to understand the outside world. And not just for him. It was the same for others within the dojo. Apart from Shenzhen, an Xian, the blood prison great saint, the white spirit rat, the others dared not leave the dojo, nor did they challenge Guan's different treatment of certain individuals, because they knew these people would follow Guan eternally, while they themselves did not have such firm resolve. Guan's decision to keep them was also out of the hope that they would accumulate strength. Guan responded, and after thousands of years had passed, Chen Chuan finally wanted to go out into the world, both to investigate the cause of his parents' deaths, and to satisfy his curiosity about the world. He felt his sword should unsheath, to let the world witness his strength. Seeing Guan's indifferent attitude, Chen Chuan didn't know what to say. Guan stopped in his tracks and pointed a finger at Chen Chuan's forehead. Chen Chuan couldn't react in time, and was instantly immobilized, completely frozen. Guan then continued on his way. After a while, Chen Chuan awoke with a start, his back drenched in sweat, and he couldn't help but gasp for air. He genuinely felt the sword aura of 2 sword cultivators on the river of Sword Tao and saw how they died. At first, he had admired the figures of the 2 sword cultivators, but then a mysterious entity appeared and extinguished them with a single sword strike. Chen Chuan's pride was dampened, and he could appreciate the painstaking care of his master. "I'm not strong enough yet, the time hasn't come," Chen Chuan muttered to himself, his eyes gradually becoming resolute. Night fell, and Guan was reading in the study, the candlelight illuminating his face. At the table, there was another person reading. It was Shenzhen. Shenzhen had idle time, disliking qi absorption cultivation. Whatever book Guan was reading, she would also read, and the two would often discuss. Guan also enjoyed discussing with her. The two were initially connected by their love for books. The books that Guan enjoyed reading, she would also read, and they would even write books for each other. Guan was engrossed in his book when he suddenly heard the divine exotic immortal spirit speak. At that moment, Shenzhen looked up, her voice excited. "This plot twist is great." In a rainy night, they start fighting over a blood feud, and when the male lead is gravely injured, they share an intimate moment to settle regrets, then kill him amid complex emotions. Guan gave her a look and said, "Can you not read these chaotic books?" He put down the book in his hand and took the book Shenzhen was holding, then studied it carefully. Shenzhen chuckled and fetched another book from the shelf beside her. "Master, please save him. I feel if he dies, I might die too." The voice of the divine exotic immortal spirit rang out in Guan's heart, anxious. It was speaking of the divine exotic realm master, the source of power of divine exotic city. Guan, annoyed, replied in his heart, "With me here, even if he dies, you won't die." Upon hearing this, the divine exotic immortal spirit was overjoyed, thanked him, and then dared not bother Guan any further. Since entering the heaven-balancing golden immortal realm, Guan's sense of karma had reached new heights. 2,000 years ago he had heard Zhang Buku's cry for help, but he wanted to use this crisis to make Zhang Buku stronger, so he had not intervened. When the time was right, he would naturally take action. After the divine exotic immortal spirit calmed down, Guan's thoughts drifted. He thought of Zhang Chuanqiu, his first senior brother when he first joined the Supreme Sect. He remembered how Zhang Chuanqiu used to train him in Meng Lang, as if it were a scene from the distant past. Senior brother, your son will eventually go to reincarnation to find you. I look forward to the day we can reunite, Guan said with a slight smile, thinking to himself. In his pupils, a figure appeared. A lean monk that seemed ghostly. Buddha immortal. If Zhang Buku could not deal with the Buddha immortal, then Guan, as his martial uncle, naturally had to stand up for him. It just so happened that the Buddha immortal had a good relationship with the silent destruction god emperor. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 536. Celestial Court. Immortal gods. Immortal yellow sands swirled into the sky, and within a valley where not a single blade of grass grew, there sat a small blood-red lake in the center, surrounded by cliffs so neatly cut that the valley resembled a gigantic pit, with yellow sand forming an overcast dome above it. In the blood-red lake, Zhang Buku sat bare-chested, with blood acting like long snakes wrapping around his body, constantly writhing. The divine exotic realm master sat at the edge of the lake. Compared to 2,000 years ago, he seemed like a different person, emaciated to the bone, his eyes lifeless, appearing like a skeleton sitting still. Looking around, one could see numerous corpses, all of which were those of the divine exotic ghost king, each having met a horrific, fierce death. Suddenly, a yellow wind descended from the sky, forming a skull above the blood lake. It was the head of a Buddha statue, ancient and time-worn. It was indeed the head of a Buddha immortal. The Buddha immortal looked down at Zhang Buku, a strange smile appearing on his face. Zhang Buku seemed to sense something and opened his eyes. He looked up at the Buddha immortal, his expression calm, not panicked. He asked, "What, you can't resist making a move against me?" The Buddha immortal sneered in response. "You are now considered my disciple. How should you speak to your master?" Zhang Buku didn't respond, just calmly staring at him. He had stayed here for 2,000 years, enduring torturous pain. His heart had been tempered 1,000 times, and even now, facing death, he would not be flustered. "Indeed, I like your gaze. You are much stronger than these waste ones," the Buddha immortal disdainfully said. The divine exotic realm master at the edge of the lake trembled slightly, yet was unable to raise his head. Source: web novel. Com. Updated on. Zhang Buku merely glanced at him without caring. Zhang Buku knew that mere verbal concern would not help him. "Why do you think I chose you?" the Buddha immortal suddenly asked. Zhang Buku looked at him, waiting for his answer. The Buddha immortal seemed not to mind Zhang Buku's attitude and smiled. "You were meant to die, saved by others, your destiny changed. People like you are numerous, known as life changers. The greater the change in your destiny, the more complex your karma. That means, the higher your cultivation level, you will gradually become an anomaly of the heavenly Tao and even the great Tao. Life changers are destined for a life of hardships. Cultivation is more challenging for you than for others, but you're also more likely to encounter fortuitous opportunities." Meant to die? Zhang Buku immediately thought of Master Gu. Without Master Gu's rescue, he would have already died. "So, I bear such karma, and you choose me. Aren't you afraid of the trouble?" Zhang Buku asked, staring at the Buddha immortal. The Buddha immortal showed a sly smirk. "Kid, do you aspire to be an immortal god? Your destiny pattern suits well to ascend to the Celestial Court." "The Celestial Court?" "Indeed, that is the domain of the immortal gods. They are the true immortal gods, protected by the celestial Tao destiny. As long as the heavenly Tao remains unaltered, they do not perish. They wield the supreme power, ruling over all the great thousand world. The reason the human world has immortal gods is also because of them. However, mortal spirits cannot see them, and they disdain letting mortal spirits behold their true forms." The Buddha immortal spoke in a beguiling tone, the appeal of immortality immense. Even the transformed Zhang Buku felt emotional turbulence within. "Sir, the novel fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Cultivating for immortality. Isn't it all for longevity? Power does not always come from cultivation level, family background, or a sect, but longevity can only be achieved on one's own. Even though Zhang Buku had traversed many realms, he had never heard of anyone achieving eternal life. I too once belonged to the celestial court, but immortality for me turned into a shackle. Thus I wished to leave. However, the celestial Tao immortal position cannot be left vacant, otherwise the celestial court will not spare me. You are meant to replace me. The Buddha immortal looked at Zhang Buku seriously, his voice now devoid of mirth. Zhang Buku asked, "Is it that easy to replace?" The Buddha immortal replied, "The celestial court isn't the sect you imagine it to be. Immortal gods do not often meet one another. Many immortal gods spend their lives confined to one place, never entering the celestial court, not meeting other immortal gods. To even glimpse the celestial precepts is already a great fortune in life." Zhang Buku understood upon hearing this. The Buddha immortal's status in the celestial court must be very low, so low that hardly anyone pays attention. This realization bittered his heart. Even the lowest existence in the celestial court could bring him endless despair. Such a terrifying place it was, and he felt that stepping into it would lead to endless troubles. According to the Buddha immortal, although the celestial Tao immortal position grants immortality, it also strips one of their freedom. Perhaps the Buddha immortal could only guard this realm. If he had to stay in this sandy world forever, he could not accept it. Seeing Zhang Buku fall into despair, the Buddha immortal continued, "Only by accepting the celestial Tao immortal position will I give that fellow a chance to live. He can't hold on much longer." Upon hearing this, Zhang Buku turned to look at the divine exotic realm master, his eyebrows slightly furrowed. The Buddha immortal flew upwards, his voice following him down. "Becoming an immortal god, although you lose your freedom, you still have hope. If you die, there is no hope at all." His voice gradually faded, and his figure soon disappeared into the sands. Zhang Buku stared at the divine exotic realm master, his heart tormented. He owed a debt of gratitude to the divine exotic realm master, and could not ignore it. But if he lost his freedom, he could never see Master Gu Liya again. How long could the non-immortal Master Gu Liya live? Zhang Buku felt anguished, struggling to make a decision. Meanwhile, in the sands, the Buddha immortal was still observing Zhang Buku's reaction. He showed a sinister and cold smile, murmuring softly, "Want to become an immortal? Are you worthy? If I don't break your Tao heart, how can I take possession of you?" Suddenly, he felt his head pressed by a palm, making his eyes widen in horror as he discovered he couldn't move, nor could he even project his divine sense. In that moment his senses failed him. He couldn't see what was above him, nor could he mobilize the mana within his body. "Who is it?" The Buddha immortal bit back his fear and asked through gritted teeth. He felt an extremely powerful force of karma around him, isolating him. Now, even if he roared exhaustingly, Zhang Buku wouldn't hear or even see him. Many speculations fluttered through the Buddha immortal's mind. Whoever was suppressing him was definitely above an innate golden immortal. An existence above an innate golden immortal was not someone he could afford to provoke. Since you know he is a life changer, why didn't you think more about who changed his destiny for him? A raspy voice reached the Buddha immortal's ears, making his head tremble. It was for Zhang Buku. How could this child have such a significant backing? The Buddha immortal immediately said, "Senior, it is my mistake. I am blind to the truth, and could not calculate this karma. I am willing to let him go." "Just let him go?" "I pass all your abilities to him, and do not let him know of my existence." "All right. No problem." The Buddha immortal agreed without hesitation, feeling that if he said no, he would be obliterated instantly. "Ming soon, if you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 537. Heavenly Tao Inheritor. After the Buddha immortal left, Zhang Buku couldn't calm his heart any longer. He continued to cultivate in the blood lake, but his mind was constantly making a choice. 3 days later, Zhang Buku made a decision. He could only apologize to Master Gu in his heart, unable to repay his kindness. Buddha Immortal, come out, I agree to your terms. Release him now. Zhang Buku gritted his teeth as he spoke, feeling that repaying Master Gu's kindness was an eternity away. Yet the chance to save the divine exotic realm master was right before his eyes. As his words fell, a gust of wind descended from the sky, and the Buddha Immortal immediately appeared before Zhang Buku. He hovered not as high as before, but Zhang Buku didn't notice that. The Buddha Immortal looked at Zhang Buku with a smile and said, "Don't rush. I've changed my mind. I won't kill him, nor will I force you to inherit the celestial Tao Immortal position. Truth be told, I don't have the celestial Tao Immortal position at all. The reason I'm hiding here is that I abandoned the celestial Tao Immortal position. Heaven does not tolerate me. I intended to possess you and live on through your identity." Upon hearing this, Zhang Buku's face turned furious. Anyone would be angry if they were played with, especially after enduring 3 days of inner struggle to come to this decision. And now facing the enraged Zhang Buku, the Buddha Immortal quickly said, "Anyway, he can still be saved. I've also changed my mind and am prepared to truly cultivate you. For you, this result is better than what you expected." Zhang Buku looked coldly at the Buddha Immortal, clearly not trusting him. The Buddha Immortal inwardly groaned in distress, but thinking of that terrifying being, he had no choice but to continue explaining. "Upon calculating, I discovered that possession might not yield a good outcome for me, but your destiny pattern is exceptional. I've decided to teach you to the best of my abilities. If one day you achieve enlightenment and possess power beyond my reach, I hope you can turn back and save me." Zhang Buku frowned in doubt at these words, half believing and very hesitant. The Buddha Immortal sighed and said, "From my perspective, millions of years are like a single day. I can continue to wait, at least it's safer. If discovered by Celestial Court, then there's no salvation for me." Source: Web Novel. Com updated on. Zhang Buku remained silent. The Buddha Immortal immediately turned around, opened his mouth, and spat out a beam of bloody light that fell upon the divine exotic realm master. The realm master's breath rapidly recovered, and their flesh began to look fuller. Seeing this, Zhang Buku believed him for the most part. However, another confusion arose. Did the Buddha Immortal really come to this realization on his own? Why did the whole situation seem so perplexing? Taoist field of the beginningless, inside a room. Nighttime still filled the view outside the window. Xinzhen was still reading. Gu An's spirit retracted without drawing her attention. To warn the Buddha Immortal, it wasn't Guan himself who went, but a manifestation created by the power of karma. With Zhang Buku and the divine exotic realm master there, Guan could quickly locate them. Their world's rules of heaven and earth couldn't restrict Guan. To Zhang Buku, the celestial spirit great world was very, very far away, so distant he didn't know if he could ever return in this lifetime. But in Gu An's eyes, Zhang Buku wasn't too far. Even if he was in another great thousand world, going there wouldn't be too difficult. The hardest part of crossing the great thousand worlds is passing through the world gate, guarded by the celestial spirit god. Guan was different. He could traverse different great thousand worlds using the river of Sword Tao. The river of the great Tao exists outside the universe, an unfathomable concept. The enlightened can use the river of the great Tao to travel to different places. However, most who enter find themselves perplexed and unable to find an exit. Only the desperate enlightened would flee into the river of the great Tao. Contemplating different great Taos allows entering the respective rivers. Those musing on the path of destiny may enter the river of destiny, and those on the Sword Tao may enter the river of Sword Tao. To glimpse the rivers of the great Tao is incredibly challenging. Not every profound yuan-free immortal can do it. It purely depends on one's comprehension. Guan closed the book and said, "Dawn is nearly here. You can go back now." Xinzhen glanced at him and asked, "Why the hurry tonight? The last time we discussed Green Hero Travelogue, we talked for a whole day and night. I just went through a struggle and am somewhat tired." Sar the Ovalfire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. What struggle? Mywell went to grapple with an existence far beyond the 9 heavens of the immortal path. Guan said, feigning a sense of gravitas. Xinjun rolled her eyes at this. The night went by, and she never saw Guan rise from his seat. The words sounded hollow to her, and naturally, she did not believe them. All right then, it's rare that you hurry me along. I just hope you haven't gotten too engrossed in your books. Xinjun stood up, placed the book she had in her hands on the table, and then turned to leave. As she reached the door, she looked back at Guan and asked, "Do I need to illustrate this book tonight?" Guan glanced at her and said gravely, "How many times must I tell you? There are 3,000 paths to enlightenment, but some paths should be taken less. Then I won't draw it." "Wait, draw it. It'll help correct your thinking," Guan replied, causing Xinjun to cover her mouth and giggle. She didn't argue with Guan, instead stepping out of the room. Once Xinjun had closed the door, Guan took out pen and paper and began to write. In the tranquil cosmic starry sky, the celestial Tao golden core still stood at the end of the long bridge, with an Hao sitting in meditation before it, looking so solitary. He faced the celestial Tao golden core, brows tightly furrowed. A figure emerged within the celestial Tao golden core, walking toward him, all the way to the edge of the golden core, and then stopped to look at him. "Aren't you still unwilling to let go?" A voice came from within the celestial Tao golden core, seemingly belonging to the young immortal emperor. And Hao didn't open his eyes and said, "It's not that I'm unwilling to let go. I have no choice. You tell me to run, but where can I flee? The river of great Tao is one way out. I am still far from the river of great Tao, and moreover, there are people here I cannot abandon. How foolish! The destruction of heaven and earth is destined. It was long decided that the celestial spirit great world should be destroyed. The only reason why these fragments remain is that the celestial spirit God is waiting for the return of the master of the great world. If you do not flee, you will surely perish along with the fragments of the world. You possess a destiny pattern that should not exist in the great thousand world. To die here would be such a pity." The voice from the celestial Tao golden core came again, urgent in its tone. And Hao did not answer. "Your most revered master has already fled. Don't you understand? Staying here is meaningless." The mysterious voice spoke with a tone of disappointment, prompting Hao to open his eyes. And Hao said gravely, "My master could not possibly flee. If he left, it was for other matters." In his heart, his master was a fearless, transcendent being, one above reproach, even by the whim of heaven. He now realized that the celestial Tao golden core before him was of heavenly Tao, but had betrayed it. The true aim of the celestial spirit God was the master of the golden core. The thought of all the great heaven and earth perishing ignited a fighting spirit within him. He wasn't afraid, nor uneasy, nor even angry. What he had was anticipation. He wanted to make a move amid the destruction, to save the situation from disaster. He sought to be the savior, just like the supporting Tao sword venerable of old, who always managed to turn the tide at the critical moment and save all living beings. He too yearned for such a moment. Even if it meant death, he felt it would be worth it. "Enough, since that is the case, I shall give you a chance." Other figures began to appear inside the celestial Tao golden core, walking from the depths, more and more of them. As Hao saw the scene unfold, his brows furrowed deeply. He did not rise but waited instead. "They are all the heavenly Tao inheritors of past generations. Though they have died, their power can be bestowed upon you. You shall be our last chance." Hearing these words, Hao's pupils gradually turned gold, just like the celestial Tao golden core, exuding the majesty of heavenly Tao. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 538 Imperial Dynasty and Sect. Ever since the Buddha Immortal began teaching Zhangbuku cultivation, 200 years had passed. With the new spring just over, the nine-spirit continent was bathed in sunlight, its vast mountains and rivers brimming with life, while flocks of birds darted out of the forests. Atop a large tree, Guan leaned against the trunk as he opened his attribute panel to check. Name, Guan. Lifespan, 9045/77 189 605 409. Physique, primordial infinite body. Cultivation level, balancing heaven golden immortal realm perfection. Unconsciously, I had reached the age of 9,000. Guan felt emotional in his heart, remembering how in ancient Wuxia, those who were second in power often claimed to be 9,000 years old. A far and immortal age for ordinary people. When he reached the age of 9,000, he still felt very young. Compared to those old monsters, he was still a youngster. Youth is wonderful. Guan's gaze shifted below, where a small stream lay across the forest. On the other side of the stream, an Exian was instructing 3 young disciples of the Qianquan sect, 2 males and 1 female, all appearing to be 17 or 18. They faced an Exian with great respect, afraid of missing any of her words. Guan could hear the thoughts of one young man who marveled at how beautiful an Exian was, his face even blushing slightly. This amused Guan. Anzin's appearance was naturally striking, and coupled with her cultivation at the loose immortal realm, her demeanor was extraordinary, almost like a celestial maiden descending to earth, something these young, newly love-struck juveniles could hardly resist. But with regulations and status differences in place, all they could do was think. After a while, an Exian stood up and said, "All right, you can return now." The 3 Qianquan sect disciples promptly got up and paid their respects. The young man, filled with admiration for an Exian, asked, "Immortal Master, when can we see you again?" The other 2 also looked at an Exian expectantly. An Exian smiled softly. "If fate allows, we will meet again. I only guide each disciple of the Qianquan sect once. It's only fair to the others." Upon hearing this, the 3 felt disappointed yet dared not plead. As before coming, their masters and the sect's elders had strictly warned them never to offend the immortal master. An Exian waved her sleeve, sending them 100 miles away, not wanting to waste more words. She turned around and looked from side to side, and only after Guan appeared on a branch did she reveal a smile that would have stunned the 3 disciples had they seen it. During the previous instruction, an Exian had not shown a smile, leading the 3 to believe she didn't smile. "Master, I Qingshan still claims these 3 have exceptional talent, yet I felt they were quite mediocre," an Exian spoke up. Guan replied, "Perhaps you haven't discovered their unique strengths yet. Everyone has virtues." Sar the Nelfire. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Reflecting on his words, an Exian thought about herself and found her master's words to be reasonable. After all, her Tao practice wasn't sufficient. If she were as powerful as her master, even a common white spirit rat could be trained into a demon king. Guan flipped down from the branch, leading an Exian towards the dojo. An Exian began to recount the major recent events within the Qianquan sect. It was said that a genius had emerged within the Qianquan sect. This disciple originally possessed mediocre talent, and his fiancée had been snatched away by a prodigy of the sect, while his family members were killed. Although many suspected the prodigy was responsible, there was no evidence. Many pitied this disciple, but that was all they could do. After several hundred years of obscurity, this disciple surprisingly demonstrated extraordinary cultivation talent and formidable combat abilities. He challenged the prodigy to a life-and-death combat, and the prodigy had agreed. Life-and-death combat was a rule within the Qianquan sect, necessitating both parties to verbally agree at the law enforcement hall and sign a contract before the combat could proceed. Additionally, harming one's fellow sect members was considered a severe crime. This rule was established to provide an opportunity for those who sought to resolve their grudges. Guan listened attentively. He didn't feel any sympathy, for such stories were too common in the human world, and there were cases even more tragic than this. He did not even bother to speculate about the outcome. Currently, not everyone could capture his attention. Just looking after people like Li Ye and An Hao, he felt already overwhelmed. Since he had relinquished his responsibilities of guarding the Supreme Sect and the Taitsong continent, Guan's days had become more relaxed. Now was the time he enjoyed most in life, where he could accumulate lifespan and have endless time to do what he desired. Recently, he had been delving into pottery. He planned to build a small town at the edge of the dojo for fun, not for any profit. As Guan and an Xian were casually discussing the events within the Qingkuan sect, far away at the Supreme sect, Longqing was also troubled by matters within the sect. Now Longqing had become a candidate for sect leader, managing all affairs of the sect, while LV Batian had long retreated to pursue Daoist techniques. In the Elder Hall, Longqing sat at the primary seat with Longjun and Candle Star standing on his sides. Dozens of elders gathered in front, incessantly debating. The Taizong imperial dynasty has always followed orders from the Supreme sect. Li Xiandao actually allowed his generals to compete with our direct disciples for precious treasures. Clearly he's testing us. That's right, Li Xiandao has really gone too far in recent years. The imperial power should not be controlled by one person. I think Li Xiandao wants to become a ruler like those of the Immortal Dynasty. Don't forget, the Immortal Dynasty was the one who started the war against the Holy Court. With the Saint King of the Holy Court supporting Li Xiandao, he indeed has the capacity to be arrogant. The most critical point is that this Saint King is a disciple of the supporting Dao Sword Venerable. If Dragon Gate Master could persuade Yang Jian, would Li Xiandao still dare to be rampant? The elders discussed fervently. Ji Hantian looked at Longqing seriously. Longqing, do you have a way to contact your master? Upon this statement, everyone fell silent. The reason Longqing felt troubled was because it involved Yang Jian, who he heard was the favorite disciple of his master. He answered, I cannot, but with my master's Dao practice he is certainly watching every move of the Supreme sect. Ji Hantian remained silent, and the elders exchanged glances. Many elders had never met the supporting Dao Sword Venerable, but they had heard many legends about him. Especially after entering the Elder Hall, they understood more about his esteemed status within the Supreme sect. As long as the sword intent on the heaven-repairing platform remained undissipated, the revered status of the supporting Dao Sword Venerable within the Supreme sect would not fade, nor would anyone dare to challenge his authority. An ancient sect elder spoke up. The Taizong imperial dynasty has already dominated many seas, and although the Supreme sect is growing stronger, its expansion is not as aggressive as that of the Taizong imperial dynasty. I think instead of suppressing the Taizong imperial dynasty, we should focus on developing the Supreme sect. Once the Supreme sect is strong enough, the Taizong imperial dynasty will naturally come back to us. Hearing this, a female elder couldn't help but retort. Develop? How do we develop? We are a sect, and our disciples' main duty is cultivation, not territorial expansion. Plus we claim to adhere to the righteous Tao and must not plunder. Her words resonated with many. Suddenly, Candle Star chuckled. Looking to develop? Your opportunity has indeed arrived. Everyone immediately looked at him, their faces filled with expectation. Candle Star was a highly accomplished Taoist, and his words might be true. Moreover, Candle Star had accompanied Longqing for thousands of years, frequently aiding the Supreme sect, thus holding immense prestige, which was also why Longqing could swiftly wield great power. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 539. Celestial Spirit's End. Invincible Power. Ji Hantian looked at Candlestar and asked respectfully, I hope the senior can enlighten us. What exactly is the opportunity? Candlestar smiled and said, the Immortal Dynasty will soon disperse. That is the opportunity. The Immortal Dynasty will disperse? Wish. The elders were shocked. To them, the Immortal Dynasty and Holy Court were colossal entities within great heaven and earth, overlord-level forces. The chaos in the world was due to the struggle between these two powers. How could the Immortal Dynasty, which had stood through countless calamities, now fall? Longqing also felt surprised and looked at Candlestar in astonishment. Candlestar smiled and said, ever since the young immortal emperor perished, although the Immortal Dynasty has introduced a new immortal emperor, he simply cannot quell the internal turmoil. Thousands of years have passed, and this towering tree of Tsangtian is finally going to fall. But with its fall comes vigorous life for all beings on the earth, be it Taoist techniques, magical treasures, or fortunes of the land, the supreme sect could gain much, much more from the fall of the immortal dynasty. These words made the elders' hearts surge with excitement. They began to inquire when the immortal dynasty would fall, to which Candlestar smiled mysteriously and said, "Soon." The news of the immortal dynasty's impending fall spread throughout the world like a whirlwind, causing great alarm. Without the immortal dynasty, wouldn't the Holy Court dominate the world? And wouldn't the world welcome an era of peace? Such thoughts arose in the hearts of 90% of those in immortal cultivation. And in time, more and more beings and powers started to anticipate the fall of the immortal dynasty, which forced the internal factions of the immortal dynasty to struggle even more fiercely. It seemed as if the dissolution of the immortal dynasty was the direction of the celestial mandate. And under such a major trend, the Holy Court, on the contrary, appeared very silent. Because the young immortal emperor had moved another great world next to the celestial spirit great world, powerful forces began to rise there as well. Hearing that the immortal dynasty would fall, the powers on the other side developed even more rapidly, as if afraid of missing their chance. Against this backdrop, another 10 years passed. Deep in the universe within the silent extinction domain, fog from the great Tao surged, making the universe seem so quiet. The world gate, symbolizing the end of the universe, remained steadfast. The celestial spirit god, sitting in meditation beneath the world gate, radiated strong heavenly Tao light, dazzling and splendid. Beneath the strong light, the figure of the celestial spirit god seemed to have even more presence than the world gate. Suddenly, the world gate burst forth with a red light, flickering slightly, and in nearly an instant, the celestial spirit god opened his eyes, and two cold rays burst forth, scattering the great Tao fog as if it had met its natural predator. The celestial spirit god stood up, and the space of the universe twisted around him. He raised his right hand and reached out across the distance. As he clenched his fist, the red light on the surface of the world gate vanished abruptly, and all seemed to return to calm. At the Taoist field of the beginningless, by the lakeside, Guan, who was fashioning clay pottery, looked up and saw the mighty destiny that had enveloped the continent of the immortal dynasty dissipate in an instant. Without destiny, the rules binding the immortal spirits suddenly vanished, as did the transcendent force uniting the immortal spirits. Next, the immortal dynasty would face unprecedented chaos, slaughter, plunder, revenge, and so on. Even immortal spirits born into the nirvana realm revealed the dark side of human nature. The continent of the immortal dynasty turned into the human world's hell in a very short span of time. Those who wielded great power began to seek their own interests, tearing apart their usual facades to become entities that the common people of the immortal dynasty feared. Guan continued to shape his pottery while watching this unfold. Having experienced so many lives through reincarnation, Guan's Tao heart had entered a higher level. In the worlds created by the great Tao, tragic scenes were everywhere. If one could not overcome the psychological impact and emotional pull of witnessing the tragedies of the human world, how was one to achieve enlightenment? Sir the Oval Fire. Website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. With the celestial spirit god personally dissolving the destiny of the immortal dynasty, Guan saw the endpoint of the celestial spirit great world. The heaven and earth Tao fruit, symbolizing the heart of heaven and earth, would emerge in the future, and the world's powerful would flock to it. When someone obtained the power of that Tao fruit, the celestial spirit god would appear, and this time, he would destroy everything. Pieces of the great world within the universe would cease to exist, one after another. In that vast and spectacular scene of destruction, the celestial spirit god turned and stepped toward the world gate. As he entered the world gate, it too turned into ash, indicating that this universe, this shattered great thousand world, would disappear. Watching this future, Guan couldn't help thinking about Hao, Liya, and others. With the lifespan dojo and his own cultivation level present, even if the universe perished, he was able to keep the people he cared about alive. But Hao, Liya, Longqing, and profound celestial intent were not the kind to quietly stay in the dojo, and they also had their own loved ones to think about. Human world was like a net, with each person intertwined in countless relationships that connected the whole of great heaven and earth. A person could be insignificant, trivial, but a person could also be crucial, indispensable. Guan was faced with only two choices. The first was to annihilate the celestial spirit god, offend the celestial court. The second was to play dead, give up the world he had lived in for a lifetime. He wasn't in a hurry to decide. Even if he chose to annihilate the celestial spirit god, he would still strive to delay as long as possible. The longer he could stall, the more lifespan he would accumulate, and the more confident he would be in dealing with the trouble from the celestial court that would follow. When faced with trouble, don't rush, don't panic, just one word: delay. Guan said leisurely, the pottery in his hands now taking the shape of a cauldron, its surface seemingly adorned with a dragon. The blood prison great saint, standing by his side, curiously asked, "Master, what are you referring to?" The blood prison great saint could sense the changes in heaven and earth, but couldn't pinpoint exactly what was changing. He just felt that the world had become more tense, more dangerous. Any matter? Guan's answer made the blood prison great saint's eyes light up. He felt his master was guiding him. The blood prison great saint pressed on. "Master, how many more years will it take for this great chaos under heaven to end?" Guan looked at the pottery in his hands and said, "It will be faster than you imagine, but also worse than you can imagine." He knew what and how was thinking, understood the young man's lofty ambitions. But no matter how great the opportunities and how had, even if he merged with the power of the heaven and earth Tao fruit, he wouldn't be a match for the celestial spirit god. Well, it was good for the young man to realize that the affairs of the world were far from as easy as he thought. Had wait for in-house despair, then he would make his move. Thinking this, Guan began to look forward to in-house transformation. And how was good in every way, except he didn't value feelings enough. His heart was always filled with Guan and an Xian. He always felt he was born alone, that he only needed to repay gratitude. As for the wife who didn't show him kindness, he could abandon her. With in-house cultivation level, he must have sensed that he still had blood relations alive, but he didn't acknowledge them. This displeased Guan, simply put, and Hao lacked a sense of responsibility. However, it was precisely because Hao had flaws that Guan felt more motivated to guide him. If the young man was perfect, it would be hard for him to give advice. Worse. How bad? Asked the blood prison great saint. Guan glanced at him, and gold light burst forth from his eyes, piercing into the blood prison great saint's forehead, freezing him in place. Afterward, Guan continued to shape the pottery. For a long time, the blood prison great saint awoke with a gasp, then started breathing heavily, trembling all over, sweat pouring down his forehead like rain, and blood quickly filled his eyes. He looked at Guan in fear and asked, "Master, who exactly was that figure?" "The celestial spirit god." Because it was inside the dojo, which isolated cause and effect, Guan wasn't afraid of being discovered by the celestial spirit god. After hearing this, the blood prison great saint memorized the name, looking at Guan, wanting to say more but hesitating. The might of the celestial spirit god had deeply shaken him. He hadn't imagined someone could be so powerful. The vastness of the celestial spirit great world was turned into dust by the celestial spirit god in an instant. Not just the celestial spirit great world, but countless other worlds too were destroyed. The blood prison great saint wanted to ask Guan who was stronger between him and the celestial spirit god, but was afraid of offending him. Although the blood prison great saint held Guan in the utmost awe, after witnessing the strength of the celestial spirit god, it was hard to believe again that Guan was invincible. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 540. The strongest of the Long family. Guan nearly laughed out loud when he heard the words of the blood prison great saint, but he restrained himself. He did not dispel the blood prison great saint's confusion, preferring to let the fellow continue his anxious trepidation. It served him right, since the blood prison great saint had been somewhat negligent in recent years. Seeing that Guan was unwilling to speak, the blood prison great saint's inner perplexity grew, but he dared not voice it. Instead, he pushed aside his inner fears and apprehension and shifted his focus. Even if his master was no match for that person, his master certainly had a strategy in place, or else he would not be so at ease on ordinary days. With this thought, the blood prison great saint's heart gradually calmed. He looked again at Gu An's clay molding, finding deep significance in every movement. Today, his master had shown him the fate of the world, surely not acting on a whim. Perhaps it was a warning to him. Under the serene and tranquil years, a catastrophe was always brewing. The blood prison great saint felt sorrow for this world. Major sects and imperial dynasties were ceaselessly vying, chasing after the celestial mandate and heavenly Tao. Yet in the end, in the face of absolute power, as heaven and earth perished together, all their scheming would be rendered meaningless. Previously, the blood prison great saint wondered why, with such formidable power, his master chose to cultivate in seclusion. Now he understood. His master had seen through everything. The blood prison great saint gazed at the clay in Gu An's hands and began to reflect, pondering his own past. After dispersing the destiny of the immortal dynasty, the celestial spirit god sat down to meditate once more, and Guan no longer paid attention to external affairs, focusing solely on his current task. What followed would be the most chaotic period for the world. Facing such chaos, the Holy Court, contrary to its normal behavior, did not aggressively annex the territories left by the immortal dynasty, but began to withdraw, pulling back to the sacred domain. This further fueled the madness of the world's forces, all eager to seize this opportunity to ascend. The supreme sect and the Taizong dynasty were no different. From the highest echelons to the common folk, everyone knew that this was an unprecedented opportunity, a decisive moment for the pattern of the world. All internal conflicts were set aside, and those in power grew increasingly bold and ambitious as each day passed. While the supreme sect was frantically exploring the outer realms, Longqing, on the other hand, was confined to the third medicine valley by Longjun. On this evening, seated in meditation on a cliff, Longqing could not help but open his eyes and turn to look at Longjun, who was reading nearby. Longjun was holding the investiture of the gods, engrossed in the book, which greatly irritated Longqing. He had read that book many times over, yet he was still reading it. Longqing could not comprehend why Longjun, after imparting the celestial dragon Dharma aspect to him, did not take his teaching seriously, and even forbade him from venturing out. Most importantly, in the face of Longjun, even Candlestar dared not utter a word. Studying the celestial dragon Dharma aspect was for the destiny of the Long family. Longqing was willing to accept this mission, but sometimes he wondered if living just to break the family's curse was truly meaningful. He thought of his master, who never rushed his cultivation when he was present. Now he was being forced to cultivate by someone else. He finally understood his master's words, that bearing karma was not so easy. The time before recovering his destiny pattern was the happiest of his life. The longer he practiced the celestial dragon technique, the more he yearned for the past. No matter how patient one is, there comes a day of eruption. Longqing was about to burst, and he couldn't help but say, "With the world in such turmoil, do you think the battle court will still come as you said?" Longjun, without even lifting his head, said, "It has already arrived. It's in the holy court." Longqing frowned and asked, "Then why haven't they made their move? Killing you would be acting on behalf of the battle court. But this world holds opportunities they cannot resist. That's also why I chose to come to this era. Right now, I can do a lot." Longjun's answer silenced Longqing. Irresistible opportunities. He wanted them too. He wanted to become stronger, to be renowned across the world, to live a spirited life. Suddenly Longjun asked, "Do you think the Taoist Hongjun in this book endured countless lonely years to achieve the Tao, or did he struggle through hardships and persevere to attain it?" Hearing this, Longqing couldn't help but roll his eyes. Could it be that Longjun was so obsessed because he saw himself in Taoist Hongjun? He had once been obsessed with the investiture of the gods, and naturally knew that Taoist Hongjun was the strongest and most mystic presence within it. At least Taoist Hongjun, when facing difficulties, didn't pin his hopes on future generations, quipped Longqing. Upon hearing this, Longjun fell silent. Only the sound of the wind remained atop the cliff. The more Longqing thought about it, the more he became frustrated. Why should he bear the burden of the Long clan's mission? The debt of life was too great, forcing him to cultivate his ancestors' dharma aspects to fight for him. Why was he so rebellious? If the ancestors were so powerful, how could the Long clan end up like this? Sir, the novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Longqing truly didn't believe that the Long clan had the strength to defy the battle court. The more he thought, the angrier he became. And with anger came despair in the depths of his heart. Qi blood surged, causing him to feel dizzy. The world in his eyes shook unceasingly. The dusk-lit celestial vault so desolate and beautiful. It gave him a sense of facing the end. At that moment he felt slightly relieved in his heart. If he were to fall now, it wouldn't be so bad. If life was for death, then why not die earlier? Longqing gradually lost control of his body, beginning to topple to the side. A hand caught his head, preventing him from falling. In a daze, he saw a figure appear before him, standing on the edge of the cliff, back facing him. The figure was so majestic, exuding an earth-shattering presence, making Longqing feel an unstoppable valor and indomitable spirit. Suddenly, Longqing's world became clear again. He quickly regained his senses and control over his body, sitting up to find the figure before him gone, as if it were an illusion. The person supporting him was Longjun. Longqing hastened to his feet, looking around to find the figure he had just seen. For some unknown reason, he felt that the figure was very powerful, perhaps capable of solving the archenemy of the Long clan. Standing beside him, Longjun asked, "What did you just see?" Without thinking, Longqing replied, "I saw someone, his back was turned to me." Unable to find the figure, Longqing turned to Longjun and, seeing a look of relief on Longjun's face, couldn't help but ask, "Do you know who that person was?" Longjun replied, "When you cultivate the celestial dragon dharma aspect, the first thing you'll see is Emperor Longqin, which is my father's image. Actually, to cultivate the celestial dragon dharma aspect, you need intense emotional stimulation, so I didn't give you specific guidance. I wanted to wait for you to initiate it first." Emperor Longqin. Longqing murmured to himself, the figure from before reflected in his eyes. Longjun eyed him and said, "Actually, the Long clan is very strong. Many died from accidents or passed away prematurely. If the Long clan were so weak against the battle court, they wouldn't have pressed us so relentlessly." These words eased the resentment in Longqing's heart significantly. Longqing couldn't help asking, "Is Emperor Longqin the strongest of our Long clan?" Longjun shook his head and said, "The most powerful feature of the celestial dragon dharma aspect is that the ancestors you summon might reveal the limits of their strength, because different people will summon ancestors of different strengths when they cultivate the celestial dragon dharma aspect. If you can summon my son, we will have even more hope. Of course, if you could summon all of the Long family members, that would be the most hopeful moment." Longqing frowned and asked, "Are you sure your son is stronger than Emperor Longqin?" He could not forget the figure of Emperor Longqin, so unbeatable. He did not believe any other member of the Long family could be stronger than Emperor Longqin. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 541. Just enough to wipe out the celestial and earthly immortals. Once you can cultivate his dharma aspect, you will understand that he can bear all hope. Longjun turned his head towards the distance, speaking softly, his eyes revealing a sense of nostalgia. Longqing then continued to fantasize about Emperor Longqin. After a while he began to inquire about the deeds of Emperor Longqin. Since Longqing had already entered the threshold of the celestial dragon dharma aspect, Longjun's attitude had changed, and he began to recount the deeds of Emperor Longqin. With Longqing listening intently, the more stories Longqing heard, the calmer his heart became. Understanding the past of the Long clan could help him deepen his understanding of the Long clan and strengthen his sense of honor and disgrace. In my view, throughout the ages, The Long clan deserve their fate today. When powerful, they oppressed all around, and also gave birth to many extreme prodigies. However, the Long clan should not be oppressed by the battle court. Breaking the Long clan's fate and destroying the battle court also counts as settling our karmic ties, since the battle court was created by us, but they committed sins in the name of the battle court. It began with the Long clan, and must end with the Long clan. Long Jun spoke earnestly, pausing before saying, "Your descendants should no longer bear the surname Long." Upon hearing this, Long Qing did not shake his head in denial. He was still immersed in the stories of Emperor Longxin. Though he had only seen the back of Emperor Longxin, Long Qing was instantly awed by him, developing a strong sense of adoration. He began to look forward to the celestial dragon Dharma aspect. At least once he had mastered the celestial dragon Dharma aspect, he could witness the elegance of Emperor Longxin. 100 years later, the human world was a new landscape. The nine-spirit continent was finally entangled in the maelstrom of great chaos, with more and more great cultivators fleeing into this continent, causing the winds and clouds of the continent to surge. On the edge of the continent, on a beach, two women descended from the sky, and upon landing, they quickly sat down to start cultivating energy. One of them, dressed in green with delicate makeup, only her hair was slightly messy, while the other, dressed in white and even more beautiful, resembled a fairy of the human world, but her face was completely pale, clearly having sustained serious injuries. The green-clad woman opened her eyes and looked at the white-clad woman, asking, "Sister, are we safe here?" The white-clad woman, named Li Xuanyu, slowly opened her eyes, turned her head towards the distance, and said faintly, "Hard to say." The green-clad woman, named Tang Kai, furrowed her brows upon hearing Li Xuanyu's words and sighed heavily. "How much longer must we run? And how can Li Yu find us?" Tang Kai asked anxiously. Li Xuanyu did not answer. She closed her eyes again to continue healing. Seeing this, Tang Kai also closed her eyes to heal. Time quickly passed. About an hour later, suddenly a strong wind blew from the end of the ocean, startling both women into opening their eyes. "Let's go. It seems they don't plan to let us go," Li Xuanyu said as she stood up, her figure trembling, almost falling, but Tang Kai promptly supported her. Without delay, Tang Kai summoned a magical treasure and helped Li Xuanyu to fly deeper into the continent. Sir, the Novel Fire Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Shortly after they had left, countless black crows attacked from the sky, swarming and covering the heavens, their speed extremely fast as they quickly flew into the continent. Tang Kai, who was maneuvering the magical treasure, seemed to sense something, turning her head to look, her face changing drastically with panic filling her eyes. "They're so fast, what should we do?" Tang Kai looked at Li Xuanyu next to her and asked in a low voice. Although Li Xuanyu had suffered severe injuries, she had always been Tang Kai's support. If it weren't for the need to protect her along the way, Li Xuanyu would not have sustained such serious injuries. Li Xuanyu's face remained calm as she said, "Leave me behind, and you escape. They're mainly targeting me." Upon hearing this, Tang Kai was immediately agitated and said, "What nonsense are you talking about? I promised Li Ye that I must keep you safe. Either we die together or you live, and later, find Li Ye to avenge me," Li Xuanyu said, her tone unflinching. Tang Kai fell silent. Li Xuanyu grabbed Tang Kai's wrist with one hand and stared at her steadfastly. Tang Kai clenched her teeth, manipulated her magical treasure, and flew downward. The two women landed in a forest, and Tang Kai helped Li Xuanyu to sit down in front of a tree. "Let's hurry and get moving, stop dawdling," Li Xuanyu said as she sat down, her face growing even paler, but she still urged. Tang Kai stood up, walked a few steps outward, then stopped in her tracks. She clenched her sleeves, unable to leave. Li Xuanyu looked at her, a trace of relief flashing in her eyes. Just as she was about to speak, a voice came from deep within the forest. "Are you outsiders?" Li Xuanyu and Tang Kai both turned their heads to look, and saw a yellow-robed woman who looked like a fairy walking out from the forest with a bamboo basket in her hand, a gentle smile on her face. The newcomer was an Xian. Li Xuanyu frowned and examined an Xian closely. Tang Kai asked, "Who are you? Why are you here?" After all, she possessed a nirvana realm cultivation level. And in her perception, there were no living beings within 1,000 li. How could an Exian have approached them silently? How could she not be cautious? An Exian smiled and said, "My name is an Exian. As I was passing by, I calculated that I have a connection with you too, so I wanted to come and help." She was curious in her heart, not knowing which one was Elder Li's sister and which was Elder Li's beloved. Her gaze fell on Li Xuanyu, whose facial features slightly resembled Elder Li. She guessed that she must be Elder Li's sister. Li Xuanyu always felt the name an Exian sounded familiar, as if she had heard it somewhere before, but she couldn't remember. Perhaps some cultivator had mentioned a similar-sounding name. "How can you help us? Do you know what we are fleeing from?" Tang Kai asked cautiously. An Exian smiled and said, "You have no choice, you can't abandon her, can you?" Tang Kai was silent. Just then, countless black crows attacked from the depths of the forest, like darkness swallowing everything, causing Tang Kai's face to change dramatically, and Li Xuanyu to instinctively raise her hand. An Exian quickly turned around, a long pin appearing in her hand. With a swing, the crows turned into flying ash, forming a black mist that spread through the forest. Tang Kai's eyes widened, and even Li Xuanyu was startled by Anzin's action. The wind blew Anzin's long hair and dress. She slightly tilted her head, glanced at Li Xuanyu and Tang Kai from the corner of her eye, and smiled. "Does this count as helping you?" Tang Kai said dazedly, "It counts, but the real pursuers are still behind us." An Exian asked, "What realm is he in?" "Heaven and Earth Flying Immortal Realm." "It's a coincidence. The pen in my hand is just enough to extinguish a celestial and earthly immortal." An Exian raised the fate pen in her hand, smiling triumphantly. Sunlight poured through the gaps in the leaves, casting light on her, making her appear so exceptional in Tang Kai's eyes. Such a demeanor she had only seen in Liya before, which was an absolute confidence that any trouble could be solved. Even Li Xuanyu had to admit that an Exian truly possessed a convincing aura. She suddenly remembered. She had heard the name an Exian before, apparently from Liya, but why she brought up the name still wasn't clear, as it was a matter from long ago. If this woman knew Liya, then she could be trusted. An Exian put away her pen, then turned and smiled. "Come with me. I'll take you to a place to heal. It's your first time on the 9-spirit continent, right? You can stay here for a while. Perhaps you will find some serendipity." Tang Kai hurriedly gave her thanks and asked, "Senior, why do you want to help us?" She couldn't be at ease without asking. An Exian blinked and said, "I know Liya, is that enough?" Upon hearing this, Tang Kai did not show joy. Instead, suspicion appeared in her eyes. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know, report, so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 542. This will be the greatest opportunity of your lives. Night fell. An Exian was temporarily staying in a monastery with Li Xuanyu and Tang Kai, where a fire blazed in the courtyard, its flickering light casting shadows on the walls. Tang Kai watched an Exian intently, her eyes filled with hostility, while an Exian admired the fate pen. Having used the fate pen more than once or twice, an Exian greatly enjoyed the vast power it contained. Unfortunately, after each use her master would take it back, so she treasured the time she had with it, and wanted to investigate why the pen was so formidable. As for Tang Kai's gaze, an Exian had noticed it long ago and could guess Tang Kai's thoughts, but she intentionally offered no explanation. Because it was fun. Tang Kai treasured Elderly like a treasure, but an Exian felt that Elderly was just SOSO, and nowhere near as formidable as her own master. Every time her master mentioned Elderly, he would describe how Elderly got beaten up, using him as a negative example, so how could she possibly like Elderly? Thinking of this, the corners of Anzin's mouth couldn't help but lift. Seeing an Exian smile, Tang Kai grew even angrier, but she couldn't lash out. After all, an Exian had saved their lives. While meditating and healing, Li Xuanyu kept thinking about the name an Exian. Finally, she remembered, and opening her eyes, she looked towards an Exian and asked, "Are you Guan's disciple?" Mentioning Guan, the blurry face in her memory gradually became clear. It had been over 9,000 years since she left the Tidesong continent, and she had never returned. Her meeting with Liya was purely coincidental on an island, and Liya did not reveal that Guan was the supporting Dao Sword Venerable. Li Xuanyu could not associate Guan with the supporting Dao Sword Venerable either, since when she knew Guan, he was just a medicine boy, and she had even helped him manage an introduction to take care of a cave mansion. Back then, Guan had run around for a few spirit stones. Later, however, she had realized that Guan was not simple and hid secrets, but she never thought of him in terms of the supporting Dao Sword Venerable. An Exian turned her head towards her and smiled brightly. Yes, elderly, my master has mentioned you too. He said that when he was young you helped him a lot. Hearing this, Li Xuanyu was sure she hadn't misheard, and a smile appeared on her face as she said reflectively, I didn't really help him much, just lending a hand. How has he been doing lately? An Exian replied, He's doing well, don't worry. Could it be that he is also on this continent? No, that's not the case, no one knows where he has gone. An Exian shook her head. This wasn't her being secretive, but rather Guan genuinely wanting to hide his whereabouts, not wanting to attract trouble, and she definitely couldn't cause trouble for Guan. She was curious about the image of Guan in Li Xuanyu's mind, so she started to share the stories Guan had told her. And Li Xuanyu also fell into reminiscence. Tang Kai was also captivated by the stories an Exian told, and gradually forgot her jealousy. Hearing that Guan was Li Ya's junior brother, Tang Kai grew even more interested, as she was very curious about everything related to Li Ya, but unfortunately, before she could learn more about Li Ya, she had parted ways with him. The stories an Exian told were those Guan had shared with her. They might have seemed mundane, but on such a night, they brought Li Xuanyu and Tang Kai a sense of warmth and a touch of happiness. In Li Xuanyu's mind, Guan also gradually became clearer, and the old memories surfaced. Remembering how reserved Guan had been in front of her, a smile also appeared on her face. Over 9,000 years had passed, and many old acquaintances were buried in the earth. But Guan was still alive, and she was genuinely happy, and surprised that Guan could teach such a disciple. A millennium passes just like a flicker in the human world. 9,000 years brought about such great changes. When an Exian finished speaking, Tang Kai curiously asked, What is Guan's cultivation level now? An Exian glanced at her, smiling radiantly. How would I know? See this pen? This is his magical treasure. While speaking, an Exian raised the fate pen in her hand. Li Xuanyu and Tang Kai both looked towards the fate pen in Nzin's hand, unable to forget the sight of an Exian wielding the pen to eradicate a group of demons. Those black crows were no ordinary creatures. Even a loose immortal hit by them would be drained of all their blood essence. Just as an Exian was showing off the fate pen, Guan, who was far away in the Taoist field of the beginningless, lay reading a book while listening to their conversation. Senior Sister Li, it really has been many years. Guan lay on a chair, a book in his hands, the corners of his mouth slightly upturned. That Li Xuanyu and Tang Kai were able to come to the Nine-Spirit continent was due to his guidance, using celestial signs to bring them to the Nine-Spirit continent coincidentally. And along the way, their survival from numerous brushes with death also had Guan's secret assistance. Back then, Li Xuanyu indeed had helped Guan, so if he could lend a hand with just a simple effort, he naturally would not be stingy. Helping Li Xuanyu was also for Li Ya's sake. With Li Ya's own sister and future wife in danger, how could he not rescue them? The reason he led the two women to the Nine-Spirit continent was because a great catastrophe was about to come outside, and only on the Nine-Spirit continent would they be completely safe. Guan closed his book and shut his eyes lazily saying, After you finish your act, I take the stage, and the heroes of the world take turns, but who can really see through how deep the waters of this world are? Celestial Spirit God, I look forward to clashing with you. His voice echoed only within the room. He was speaking to himself. Amidst the mountains, Li Xuanyu and Tang Kai stood on a slope, looking at the magnificent scene ahead. Both women remained silent. Sir, the novel Fire. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Following their gaze, in front of the mountains appeared a gigantic chasm. stretching to the ends of heaven and earth. The mountains on either side, too, had been pierced, as if a dragon comparable in size to the mountains had rolled over them, leaving behind this broken landscape. An Exian descended from the sky, casually playing with the fate pen. She chuckled. Celestial and earthly immortals are just this, huh? Li Xuanyu and Tang Kai had been on the Nine-Spirit continent for several months. And today, the mastermind who had been pursuing them had finally come to kill them. After a round of negotiations, an Exian, unable to stand the other side's ranting, chose to eradicate them. Tang Kai opened her mouth, but found herself unable to speak. The supreme great power that was the cause of her despair, just like that, was dead? Li Xuanyu looked at the fate pen with a complex expression in her eyes. Is Gu An's cultivation level now at least higher than the heaven and earth flying immortal realm? She couldn't understand. She felt that her own adventures were numerous, and in her view, only Li Ya's growth rate was faster than hers. In fact, she always believed she was second to none. But what she witnessed today overturned her understanding. She felt that her peers couldn't possibly possess such power, let alone slaughtering celestial and earthly immortals. Even killing wandering immortals seemed unbelievable. An Exian looked at them and smiled. Settle down in the Nine-Spirit continent. It will change your lives. I want to accompany you further. With that, she turned and walked away, but after a few steps she stopped again. Let me remind you once more, stay here. This will be the greatest opportunity of your lives. If you insist on leaving, you will regret it for the rest of your lives. An Exian leaped up, transforming into a streak of light and disappearing into the horizon. Tang Kai couldn't help but look at Li Xuanyu and asked, "What should we do? Listen to her?" Li Xuanyu looked in the direction an Exian had left and asked, "Do you want to have cultivation like hers, to stand shoulder to shoulder with Li Ya in the future, rather than always chasing behind him?" These words stunned Tang Kai. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 543 The Descent of the Supreme Demon Realm. In the depths of the cosmos, countless meteorites, ablaze with fiery flames, tore through the great Daos mists, rushing unstoppably in the same direction, creating a sight of unparalleled grandeur. The appearance of this group of meteorites alarmed the mighty beings within the universe, as countless divine senses reached out toward them. Upon an unmoving meteorite, Wuxia from Human World Peak was meditating in this area. He suddenly opened his eyes, and was immediately startled by the swarm of meteorites approaching from the depths of the universe. He could feel the powerful forces contained within those meteorites, which even instinctively made him feel fearful. He immediately cast a spell to form a barrier, concealing himself. Soon, meteorites skimmed over him, their terrifying force causing the meteorite beneath him to tremble. Is that? Wuxia's pupils suddenly narrowed, and he saw a figure standing on one of the meteorites. Could this be a force? Looking in the direction they were flying, Wuxia's expression darkened. That direction was precisely toward the celestial spirit great world. Thinking about the changes in the celestial spirit great world over the years, Wuxia's heart filled with worry. He always felt that the tribulation of the celestial spirit great world was not due to internal factors. It seemed that some supremely powerful entity was manipulating everything. The death of Yang Immortal Emperor was the best proof. After all the meteorites disappeared into the darkness, Wuxia hesitated for a moment, then finally flew in the opposite direction. He chose to preserve himself. At the same time, in the celestial spirit great world, beings of high realm also sensed the threat from beyond heaven. In the third medicine valley, Long Jun stood on the cliff, gazing up at the celestial vault, his expression serene. Candlestar appeared beside him and whispered, "It's the people from the Supreme Demon Realm. I sense the aura of the Supreme Demon Emperor, their current leader." "Such a vast scheme," Long Jun murmured. "They want to eliminate every thorn in their side. The destiny of the heavenly Tao has changed." "Changed? What do you mean?" Candlestar asked, confused. Long Jun answered, "The future I saw has already altered. At the very least, the Supreme Demon Realm should not have appeared." Hearing this, Candle Star furrowed his brows. In his eyes, Long Jun's cultivation level was profound. He could traverse from the past to the present, and his Tao practice might not be inferior to the Silent Destruction God Emperor. At least the Silent Destruction God Emperor did not possess such a capability to cross through antiquity and the present. Facing the anomalies in the heavenly Tao, what should we do? Candle Star asked. He had already bet everything on Long Qing, and there was no turning back, and since Long Jun was Long Qing's ancestor, the two stood on the same side. He now greatly trusted Long Jun, continue to lie low, and wait for that young one to master the celestial dragon Dharma aspect, answered Long Jun, his voice calm. Candle Star then inquired, should we start preparing a concubine for him? It can begin now, after all. I cannot see the upcoming situation clearly either. It's better to be prepared earlier. Good, I will start the selection process. At the boundless mountain range, Liya and Sword Annihilation Ancestor reached the edge of the forest, looking out over the magnificent mountains ahead. Liya turned and looked at Sword Annihilation Ancestor, asking, Master, did you feel it? Sword Annihilation Ancestor furrowed his brows tightly and replied, it's the aura of the Supreme Demon Realm. Their goal is to devour great heaven and earth. And now they dare set their sights on the celestial spirit great world. There must be something fishy behind this. The Supreme Demon Realm? Are they formidable? Liya asked curiously. Sword Annihilation Ancestor began to describe the Supreme Demon Realm. The Supreme Demon Realm was born before the shattering of the celestial spirit great world. They once were an overlord-level power in a great world. After the shattering of the great world, they founded the Supreme Demon Realm, building various demon cities to invade the great heaven and earth, refining magical treasures with the power of the great world, and transforming the blood sacrifices of all living beings into their own Tao practice. Even the heavenly demon within the silent extinction domain seems negligible compared to the Supreme Demon Realm. Listening to the power and style of the Supreme Demon Realm, Liya also felt worried. Such demon race forces descending upon the celestial spirit great world were definitely not benevolent. Sword Annihilation Ancestor looked at Liya and said, I will pass on to you one last divine skill. After this, I truly have to leave. The two had parted several times, and each time Liya faced peril, Sword Annihilation Ancestor always couldn't help but intervene. This time, Sword Annihilation Ancestor spoke earnestly, making Liya feel his determination. Liya couldn't help but ask, Master, where are you going? To the place from whence I came, Sword Annihilation Ancestor answered calmly. What about the cause and effect you spoke of earlier? How should I handle it? Hearing Liya mention the conditions of their discipleship, Sword Annihilation Ancestor deeply gazed at him and said, do not deliberately think about it. As you grow stronger, the cause and effect of your master will naturally involve you. Remember, this divine skill must not be used unless it's a matter of life and death. Seeing his master so serious, Liya could only nod, acknowledging his words. His heart, however, was filled with anticipation. The Supreme Demon Realm, huh? He wanted to see how powerful the Supreme Demon Realm was, what made it capable of frightening his master away. Boom! Heaven and earth trembled, startling everyone within the Taoist field of the beginningless. They gathered in Gu An's courtyard to discuss the unusual disturbances in heaven and earth. They could see many meteors from outer heaven falling on the horizon. A magnificent sight, followed by a nearly world-ending terrifying pressure. Sir, the novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Is this demonic chi? Could it be another invasion by the heavenly demon? It feels different from the aura of the heavenly demon, such a heavy scent of blood. I wonder if there are others besides our master and young immortal emperor, who can save this world from continuous trials. There are countless strong beings in the world, but few who dare shoulder the safety of all living beings. While they were discussing worldly affairs, the door opened and Guan walked out from inside the house. Everyone immediately turned and greeted him. Guan surveyed them and asked, how about you all go out and save the world? As soon as he said this, everyone felt awkward. And Sheng Tian and Chen Chuan, who had been very vocal earlier, were blushing. Of course, Blood Prison Great Saint, who had been the loudest, just grinned shamelessly. Shenzhen was also snickering. She hadn't joined the discussion, so she didn't feel embarrassed. Go back to your cultivations. The calamity outside won't affect the dojo. With these words, Guan walked towards the courtyard gate. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other and breathed a sigh of relief. The aura from the Supreme Demon Realm was indeed too strong. Even while staying inside the dojo, they instinctively felt fear, making it difficult to cultivate peacefully. Hearing Gu An's words, they completely let go of their worries. The oppression from the Supreme Demon Realm was far less than their trust in Gu, and Shenzhen quickly caught up with Gu An's steps. After leaving the courtyard, they walked into the forest along the mountain path. Gu An's courtyard was located at the mountain's peak. The flowers and grass were lush, and the trees were tall. Walking among the trees, the speckled sunlight that fell looked so serene and mystical. If I paint the demons outside right now, will it cause trouble? Shenzhen stepped forward, walking shoulder to shoulder with Guan, and asked softly. Guan smiled and said, "You're scared too? Just paint if you want to." Hearing this, Shenzhen's face lit up with a smile. She curiously asked, "Such terrifying demonic chi doesn't intimidate you? What kind of being is worthy of being your opponent?" A breeze blew through the forest, cooling Gu An's face. "My opponent has already appeared." Gu An's statement spiked Shenzhen's curiosity. Unfortunately, her cultivation level was too low. In the previous disasters of the human world, she hadn't seen those world-shaking demonic figures. Search the novel Fire Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 544. Neither god nor demon. Dark clouds churned, and thunder rumbled incessantly as the vast ocean rose in angry waves, and heavy rain scattered with the wind. Amid those alarming surges, one could vaguely make out the shocking sight of corpses. Looking into the distance, one could see a fierce battle unfolding between the celestial sea. Countless cultivators besieged a demon tens of thousands of feet tall. The demon, human in form, was covered in black fur, dressed in black armor, and wore a horned iron helmet, resembling a war god from the demon realm. Wielding a terrifying greatsword, it could cleave the sea and slash the heavens with absolute, tyrannical might. Cultivators' bodies continuously fell, crashing into the gloomy sea and quickly being dispersed by the churning water. Miles away at the edge of the Nine-Spirit continent, Li Xuanyu and Tang Kai stood on a cliff, watching the battle from afar. Waves splashed against the shore, wetting their dresses, but they paid it no mind. How terrifying, this demon! Are such demons rampant all over the world? Tang Kai couldn't help but look at Li Xuanyu, exclaiming in awe. Several days ago, numerous meteors from outer heaven had descended, shaking the earth, and not long after, the human world faced a catastrophe. Only a few days had passed, and demons from outer heaven threatened Nine-Spirit continent. Li Xuanyu replied. The demonic chi from outside is indeed heavy, no wonder an Xan wanted us to stay. Tang Kai couldn't help but ask, "Sister, you don't think Liu will get into trouble, do you? With his temperament, he's sure to dive right into the thick of it. I'm really afraid he might get seriously injured again." "Don't worry, he has his own fortune. His life is much harder than either of ours." Li Xuanyu shook her head slightly, and saying so, she turned to leave. Tang Kai took one more look at the distant battle at the edge of the sea, then followed Li Xuanyu's steps. She was curious about the demon's cultivation level, but unfortunately, Li Xuanyu couldn't see through it either. Their experiences were but a microcosm of the world. Every continent and sea was plagued by demons from the Supreme Demon Realm, with countless beings meeting tragic deaths every day. The skies of the human world darkened, signaling a tribulation sweeping across the entire great heaven and earth. The Supreme Demon Realm came only to slaughter. In the sacred domain, within a palace, 7 figures gathered, staring at the throne of the silent destruction god Emperor in silence for a long time. One of the women broke the silence, The master hasn't come back yet. Could something have happened? At these words, the faces of the other 6 turned grim. The silent destruction god emperor had been missing for many years. They had not been worried at first, but now with the attack of the supreme demon realm, and the god emperor's absence, they couldn't help but be concerned. The supreme demon realm has always hidden in the shadows. Now that they have launched a large-scale invasion of the celestial spirit great world, I fear someone has been guiding them from behind, and that person is likely that one. A middle-aged man inhaled deeply and spoke gravely. He didn't specify who that one was, but everyone understood. The celestial spirit god. The supreme existence of this great thousand world. Once again, the hall fell into silence. Even with the lowest among them being profound yuan-free immortals, the mere thought of the celestial spirit god sent chills down their spines, quelling any thoughts of rebellion or scheming. Just then, the palace began to tremble, and the candles flickered violently, threatening to go out at any moment. All 7 turned to look towards the doorway. Without the holy court, the celestial court appears stronger, yet it seems to have lost its former keen edge. A cold voice came from outside the hall, like a muffled thunder that echoed throughout the sacred domain, audible to all beings within the holy court. The 7 in the hall looked at one another again, none volunteering to speak first. More than the safety of the holy court, they wanted to know where the silent destruction god emperor had gone. They didn't even consider the possibility of the emperor being dead. In their minds, the silent destruction god emperor was an immortal being. If a power such as the holy court could come under attack from the supreme demon realm, what about other sects? The major sects of the Tide Song continent also faced tribulations. The supreme sect, having lost the protection of the supporting Tao sword venerable for over 9,000 years, was once again drawn into the defense battle. Spring gave way to autumn, and 300 years passed in the blink of an eye. The human world entered a bizarre state where demons roamed freely, and it was difficult to distinguish between human and ghost. All living beings were living in constant fear. On the Tide Song continent, within the North Sea mountain ridge, profound mystery sat in front of the pill furnace in the courtyard, looking up at the overcast clouds, his face full of worry. He turned his head to look at the mountain god on the eaves and asked, "Mountain god, is there no one in this world who can drive out the supreme demon realm?" 300 years had passed, and the name of the supreme demon realm had spread far and wide. Everyone knew that the evil demons ravaging the human world came from the supreme demon realm. The immortal dynasty had fallen, the holy court had been slaughtered by the supreme demon realm, and the entire world was shrouded in their darkness, with clouds so dense that hope was obscured. Although profound mystery lived in seclusion in the North Sea mountain ridge, occasionally cultivators and demons would pass by, which allowed him to stay informed of major events in the world. Now, even the Tide Song continent was plagued by minions of the supreme demon realm. The powerful demons of the supreme demon realm, once they descended into the human world, recruited many minions. They were also able to nurture more demons, swiftly expanding the influence of the supreme demon realm to cover the entire world. "Of course there is," Guan casually replied while sitting on the eaves, whittling a bamboo stick. "Otherwise there would be no living creatures left in the human world by now." With the invasion of the supreme demon realm, although the human world suffered greatly, it also gave birth to numerous heroes. Now many great cultivators were preparing to besiege the main city established by the supreme demon realm in the human world, forcing the supreme demon realm on the defensive. CTH Novelfire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Guan was but a pawn to the supreme demon realm. The celestial spirit god sought to use the power of the supreme demon realm to force out the heaven and earth Tao fruit. It seemed that the celestial spirit god could not personally annihilate all living beings. It was as though some force in the unseen depths was restraining the celestial spirit god, which made Guan even more curious about the celestial court that lurked behind the celestial spirit god. What sort of order did the celestial court have, and how were its classes of strength and weakness divided? After hearing this, the worry in profound mystery's eyes faded. Having secluded himself in the mountains for over 9,000 years, He too had his own insights. He had felt compassion for the suffering of passers-by, but as time went on, he realized that he couldn't change anything. Moreover, suffering would not vanish. People would always suffer, and the difference lay in whether or not he could see it. A high-pitched dragon's roar echoed between heaven and earth. Profound Mystery looked up and saw a dragon tail appearing in the cloudy sky, twisting like a mountain range, a magnificent sight to behold. This dragon had green scales yet radiated golden light. Filled with curiosity, Profound Mystery asked, "Is this being a god or a demon?" Since the descent of the supreme demon realm, he had occasionally seen celestial beasts appearing, including dragons, but this particular dragon tail gave him a feeling there was an indescribable divinity present. Guan, wearing a mask, looked up and said, "Neither god nor demon, merely a lost soul." That was not a true dragon but someone's dharma aspect. Guan was somewhat curious as well. Could there truly be such a prodigy within the Long clan? This individual was neither Long Xian nor Long Mia. Guan's gaze stretched out toward the third medicine valley of the Supreme Sect. In Long Qing's practice of the celestial dragon technique, there had been progress. Within Long Jun's domain, he had condensed 12 dharma aspects, one of which was wrapped by a golden dragon, its aura towering. A lost soul. Profound Mystery's curiosity grew, and he stared intently at that dragon tail. At that moment, not only he but creatures across the continent were looking up at that dragon tail. Mortal spirits even thought a true dragon had descended to exterminate demons for them. More and more mortal spirits knelt down, kowtowing towards the dragon tail, crying out and praying. Inside Long Jun's domain, it appeared no different from the surrounding cliffs of the Third Medicine Valley, but in reality, they were in an entirely separate space. Long Qing opened his eyes and turned his head to look, and he was suddenly taken aback. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 545. Heavenly Dao Peak Celestial Emperor. Who is he? As he gazed at the Dharma aspect that was enveloping the golden dragon, Long Qing asked Long Jun. Long Jun looked at the golden dragon Dharma aspect, his expression quite complex, and said, "He is the previous you, your ancestor. Like you, he's a remnant of the Long clan. I crossed through the years to assist him. He failed, but not before leaving a lineage for the Long clan, offering a glimmer of hope." Long Qing hadn't expected that Long Jun had sought out other ancestors before. He realized he was not the most unique. "Can you tell me his story?" Long Qing asked, curious to learn about the life of each Dharma aspect he managed to manifest. Long Jun, although he lived in the distant past, had the ability to see the lives of all his descendants. This time he didn't hold back and began to recount the life story of this member of the Long clan. Long Meng, born without parents or even the protection of servants left by his family, was abandoned in the Great Thousand World, and was taken in by a cultivator from a sect. The first half of his life was relatively stable, until he awakened the bloodline of the Long clan, which drew the attention of the battle court. His master was turned to ash, his wife and children were slaughtered, and his fellow sect members were almost entirely massacred. Had Long Jun not intervened in time, the lineage of the Long clan would have ended with Long Meng. After rescuing Long Meng, Long Jun began to teach him the secret techniques of the Long clan. During his cultivation, Long Meng developed his own understanding of the celestial dragon Dharma aspect. The golden dragon showcased by the Long Meng Dharma aspect was a manifestation of will, allowing him to be more focused and powerful in battle. Once, Long Meng had brought boundless hope to Long Jun. Unfortunately, Long Meng still met his end at the hands of the silent destruction god Emperor, and his grandson even fell victim to the Emperor's possession. The silent destruction god Emperor, always him. What exactly is his relation to the battle court? Why does he continuously possess us? Long Qing asked indignantly, his eyes brimming with murderous intent. Long Jun replied, "He has no direct connection to the battle court, but he covets the bloodline talent of the Long clan. Perhaps he has reached his own limits and can ascend no further." Long Qing took in a deep breath, his fists clenched tightly, and said, "I hope I get the chance to kill him with my own hands in this life." Long Jun remained silent, offering no further conversation. Then, Long Qing closed his eyes and continued to cultivate the celestial dragon Dharma aspect. Since the advent of the supreme demon realm, he had felt a sense of crisis. Setting aside the vast power of the supreme sect, he began to dedicate himself entirely to mastering the celestial dragon Dharma aspect. Hearing of Long Meng's deeds, Long Qing's resolve grew even stronger. He had to master the celestial dragon Dharma aspect. He had to eradicate the battle court. He had to slay the silent destruction god emperor. And he had to resolve the fate of the Long clan. Far away at the mountain god temple, Guan stood up after listening to Long Meng's story. He bid farewell to profound mysterious Shinran, and then vanished from the eaves. Afterward, Guan spent half a day at Immortal Seeking Island before leisurely returning to the Taoist field of the beginningless. The mischief of demons had made the atmosphere on Immortal Seeking Island even tenser. The number of guards doubled, ready to fend off any attacks by evil demons at a moment's notice. As Guan walked through the forest, he appeared to be leisurely strolling, but in reality, he was calculating the destiny of heaven and earth. The final battle between him and the celestial spirit god was drawing closer. Once the supreme demon realm lures out the heaven and earth Tao fruit, an era that had lasted nearly 10,000 years would come to an end. If Guan didn't act, the celestial spirit great world would certainly be obliterated. Regardless of how many great cultivators there were in the world, or how high the talent of the prodigies, none would matter in the face of the celestial spirit god. Guan looked at his attribute panel. His lifespan had reached over 860 billion years. He was full of confidence. Compared to the celestial spirit gods, he was now more curious about the existence that had created the celestial spirit great world, and where it was hiding. After the arrival of the supreme demon realm, the celestial Tao destiny of the great heaven and earth started to dissipate, gaining a void and ethereal destiny, similar to that of heaven and earth, yet with an added vitality belonging to living beings. Both the celestial Tao golden core and the heaven and earth Tao fruit still existed, proving that the existence which had pioneered the celestial spirit great world had not completely perished. It was merely waiting for the opportunity to resurrect. Whether the celestial Tao light layer that enveloped the great heaven and earth was for protection or restraint would soon reveal its answer. Late at night, a demon cloud shrouded the sky, preventing living beings on earth from seeing a single star. Within a valley surrounded by mountains, Zhuxi meditated by the lake, her gaze lost in the shimmering water surface. The immortal seeker approached her, gathered up his robe, and sat down on the ground. "Are you afraid?" the immortal seeker asked softly, looking at the lake. Zhuxi replied, "Of course I'm afraid. But if faced with the annihilation of heaven and earth, the collapse of the universe, I have no choice but to draw my sword against him." The immortal seeker smiled and said, "The situation in the world is becoming increasingly chaotic. The battle court, profound abyss, supreme demon realm, river of sword Tao. Too many powers are vying for advantage. The more chaotic it is, the better. He is too arrogant, believing that his abilities are sufficient to suppress everything in the great thousand world." His tone carried a hint of mockery. Hearing this, Zhuxi turned to look at him and asked, "Where exactly is the heaven and earth Tao fruit hidden, and when will it appear?" She had made all the preparations she could, just waiting for the heaven and earth Tao fruit to emerge. Sir the novel _fire. @ website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. "Its appearance depends on you," the immortal seeker said leisurely. "When this world gives birth to its own profound yuan-free immortal, the heaven and earth Tao fruit will appear. You can enter the Taoist Zongzizai immortal realm at any time. Plus with the divine skills I've passed on to you. Even if you only step into the role of profound yuan-free immortal briefly, the heaven and earth Tao fruit will reveal itself. Whether it is the great world or a smaller one, they all have their own carrying limits. This shattered world can only sustain one profound yuan-free immortal." After hearing this, Zhuxi furrowed her brows, falling into hesitation. The immortal seeker continued, "Shengtian, do you know who the being at the pinnacle of the heavenly Tao, who commands the immortal gods is? Who is it? Such a being is known as the Celestial Emperor. To become the Celestial Emperor, one must endure 129,600 red dust reincarnation tribulations. The red dust reincarnation tribulation is different from the reincarnation tribulation you know of. No matter how many times you reincarnate, you must act as a savior to truly overcome one red dust reincarnation tribulation. To become the savior, you must wait for periods like the present. Zhu Zai's eyes widened upon hearing this. 129,600 red dust reincarnation tribulations. She couldn't fathom the lengthy hardships one would have to endure for so long. The immortal seeker said in a thought-provoking tone, "The predicament you are facing now may seem irreversible, but that exalted celestial emperor had to face 129,600 such crises to achieve enlightenment. Moreover, the crisis you face is far less severe because you have help and he did not. He had to start as a mortal, continuously breaking his own celestial mandate, only then capable of commanding the heavenly Tao. Your destiny pattern is unparalleled, and you have a heart aspiring to become the strongest, but you must realize that the path to being the mightiest is inevitably fraught with difficulties and requires unstoppable progress." Zhu Shi took a deep breath, and her eyes gradually became resolute. She was unsure of how powerful the Celestial Emperor was, but she knew she first had to overcome the hurdle of the celestial spirit gods. "Even if it means death, I have to fight, especially when there's no way back." The immortal seeker's tone was firm, as if he too was speaking to himself. Search the novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Guan was curious about the immortal seeker. Although he was a reincarnated being, his cultivation level was not strong in this life. How was he using other forces to help Zhu Shi break through by force? This power reminded Guan of the aura of the god of destruction. The god of destruction was also a god of the celestial court. In Black Profound Emperor's memories, the aura of the god of destruction was different from that of the celestial spirit god, but it was nonetheless related to the celestial Tao aura. The power that the immortal seeker borrowed was similar to that of the god of destruction, though there were also differences. Guan sensed carefully and felt that this power might be at the same level as the god of destruction and the celestial spirit god. Compared with the three, none was significantly stronger than the others. Interesting. It seems that there's some cause and effect contradiction within the celestial court itself. While observing the world, Guan repeated his teachings. The content in Xian had already memorized, but the reason he repeated it was that he infused his Tao intent into his voice, allowing the Tao listener to have new realizations with each listening of the same content. And Zin's spiritual root qualification was mediocre, but her comprehension was not bad. For her to have come this far, Guan had expended quite a bit of effort just teaching the Tao. Thankfully, it looked to be worth it. Let's see what kind of existence it is that has allowed the celestial spirit god to hold on until now. Guan looked at an Xian, thinking thus in his heart. In the following autumn, the nine-spirit continent remained relatively calm, but the Taitsong continent and other places around the world suffered even more intense shocks. The supreme demon realm seemed to sense something, and became increasingly manic. All over the world, the multitude of living beings felt a sense of oppression. The world isn't really about to end, is it? At dusk, Xian stood beside Guan, looking into the distance with him. S.E. of the novel Fire. Net ** website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Xian's face was full of worry, because he felt an oppressive aura emanating from outside the dojo, causing all things between heaven and earth to tremble. Even the spiritual energy seemed restless and uneasy. The reason he could sense the situation outside the dojo was because Guan specifically allowed him to feel it. To be precise, he allowed everyone inside the dojo to feel it. At such a time, it is necessary to make the people in the dojo aware, so they would cherish what they have. Perhaps it truly might be the end of the world. Guan said softly, alarming Lv-Xian, who looked at him in fear. Lv-Xian asked, if that is so, what about us? With Guan's abilities, he could surely escape to outer heaven, so why choose to seclude in the celestial spirit great world? Chapter 547. The sky is falling after nirvana. The stages are loose immortal, wandering immortal, celestial and earthly immortals, carefree primordial immortal, divine immortal of wondrous dharma, Tao void profound immortal, divine thought true immortal, and free immortal. Guan's voice floated towards everyone. Their eyes widened in awe. CTH Novelfire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Guan, fearing they hadn't understood clearly enough, added, although Daoist Zongzizai immortal and profound Yuan free immortal are still considered free immortals, the gap between each level far surpasses the 9 heavens of the immortal path. Once one reaches Daoist Zongzizai immortal, they will cultivate a Dao fruit, the so-called Dao fruit. At this point he stopped and turned his head to look towards the mysterious giant fruit on the horizon. Dao fruit. Chen Chuan couldn't help but ask, Master, could this heaven and earth Dao fruit possibly be a cultivator's Dao fruit? The others all looked at Guan, extremely tense, awaiting his answer. Guan replied, yes, the heaven and earth Dao fruit is indeed a cultivator's Dao fruit, and the catastrophe of heaven and earth is brought by the enemies who slew him. Everyone was shocked upon hearing this, turning to look at the heaven and earth Dao fruit that was still growing, feeling more powerless than ever. How many years of cultivation would it take to reach such heights? Yet such a being could still be killed. They couldn't fathom what the entity capable of slaying the creator of heaven and earth would be like. But they knew one thing. The sky was falling. Shenzhen looked at the heaven and earth Dao fruit with a strong urge to paint it down, and she instantly disappeared from the spot. An Xian looked at Guan with a hesitant face and asked, Master, the pressure before the appearance of the heaven and earth Dao fruit, why do I feel like I've encountered it before? Upon her words, the others looked at an Xian in surprise. Had she also met a profound Yuan free immortal? Guan glanced at an Xian, his eyes showing a touch of satisfaction. He casually answered, indeed you have. Her name is Zhu Shi, who is also the Saint Heaven reincarnation. Saint Heaven reincarnation? Celestial demon child's eyes lit up with excitement as she asked, is it the Lord of the Holy Court? Hearing Guan affirm with a everyone grew even more excited, and began to discuss the legend of Saint Heaven. Guan said no more, vanishing into thin air, leaving the rest of the experience for them to feel for themselves. As the heaven and earth Dao fruit emerged, all sects across the world were alarmed, and one great cultivator after another flew towards the heaven and earth Dao fruit. Even Liya rode the 9 extremes sacred heart sword there. From afar, he looked at the heaven and earth Dao fruit, incapable of reflecting the whole fruit in his pupils, while divine exotic immortal spirit stood on his shoulder, equally showing a face of disbelief. What is that? Divine exotic immortal spirit asked with a trembling voice, witnessing the heaven and earth Dao fruit, and instinctively feeling fear. The enormity of the heaven and earth Dao fruit shook all living beings' sight, and in the face of such creation, beings only felt reverence, not daring any disrespect. Liya also felt the pressure, and his flying speed began to slow. Reason told him that this was not something he could snatch, but another voice in his heart urged him to seize this supreme opportunity. As Liya hesitated, figures swept overhead, moving with great speed. Seeing so many fearless individuals, Liya felt greater courage welling up inside him. There's strength in numbers. Maybe he would be the one to seize it. Liya gritted his teeth and immediately accelerated forward. The enormous and spectacular heaven and earth Dao fruit hovered above the land and vast sea, with Zhu Shi and Immortal Seeker standing at the top of the heaven and earth Dao fruit, looking up into the dazzling starry sky. The celestial Dao light layer that enveloped the celestial spirit great world had become thin, as if it would completely disappear at any moment. Zhu Shi changed into a golden robe that clung to her body, her long hair coiled under a phoenix crown, with 2 golden dragons on her shoulders, and a crimson halo floating behind her. At this moment, she exuded an air of supreme dominance, her brows revealing a chilling disdain for all living beings. Lord of the Holy Court, Shengtian. Profound Yuan free immortal. The immortal seeker looked up and sighed. There are just too many fools who can't see. As his voice fell, a huge black hole appeared in the starry sky above, and blood-red waves of air surged out, writhing like tentacles, horrifying and terrible. Who would have thought that the celestial spirit great world could give birth to the profound Yuan free immortal during the shattered era? An authoritative voice echoed between heaven and earth, so that all creatures could hear. Zhu Shi did not look up, but instead gazed down at the heaven and earth Dao fruit below. Each golden rune glowed with a light unique to it, appearing mysterious. The immortal seeker whispered, "The supreme demon emperor from the supreme demon realm has arrived. If you want to merge the heaven and earth Dao fruit, you might have to deal with him first." As his voice fell, black holes of various sizes appeared from all directions, terrible auras spilling out from them. Their converging might made heaven and earth tremble. Zhu Shi did not raise her eyes. She simply uttered one word. "Good." Boom boom. The palace trembled, and Jiang Qiong, sitting at the highest seat, furrowed her brows. Her gaze turned to the palace doors outside, where the sky was dark, lightning flashed, and thunder roared. Fierce winds ravaged the forests, and in the far distance at the edge of the sky, one could vaguely see a terrifying behemoth. Heaven and earth Dao fruit. Looking at the heaven and earth Dao fruit, Jiang Qiong felt very uneasy. She always had the feeling of facing the apocalypse, as if it was the last day of heaven and earth. At that moment, a female cultivator swiftly flew into the hall, landing before the steps, and saluted Jiang Qiong. "Master, the evil demon has left. It seems to be heading towards the distant mysterious giant fruit. Should we deactivate the sect protection formation?" the female cultivator asked. The mention of the mysterious giant fruit caused her voice to hesitate for a moment. Jiang Qiong glared at her and said, "You feel the malevolence of this heaven and earth. Do you think it should be deactivated?" The female cultivator replied helplessly, "Master, the resources consumed by this formation are truly immense, and continuing like this could easily drag us down. Over the years, you have not allowed us to go out and compete." Her voice trailed off with a hint of resentment. Jiang Qiong responded, "You must have seen other cultivators from sects that joined the struggle. Haven't you noticed a common trait amongst them?" The female cultivator asked in surprise, "What trait?" "They all become mad, bold, even obsessive. Once they set foot on this path, it seems they can never turn back. I'm not sure if my current decision is right, but if the disciples of Gathering Flower sect become like that, then sooner or later, the sect will perish." Jiang Qiong's words plunged the female cultivator into silence. She thought carefully about the faces of those people. They did seem off, with a crazed posture. The palace continued to tremble violently, with hot or icy winds blowing in intermittently. Just as the female cultivator was about to leave, a voice full of oppression rang out. "Shengtian, I did indeed underestimate you. But the path you've chosen will surely lead to your doom." The voice of the Supreme Demon Emperor, tinged with fear. Jiang Qiong didn't know who the voice belonged to, but she knew of Shengshan's legend. Demons rampage, and immortal gods fight amongst themselves. Even in the Nirvana realm, facing such a cataclysm, are we any different from mortals? Jiang Qiong's voice was intricate with emotion as she looked at her disciple and said somberly, "In such turbulent times, the best we mortals can do is to hide, not like moths to a flame trying to fight for something. We can't compete for such an opportunity." Search the novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. All the current struggles were a game between the celestial spirit god and the founder of the celestial spirit great world. All beings were mere pawns. Apart from Guan, The immortal seeker was the only variable. Long Jun from the past did not count. He was no threat to the celestial spirit god. As Guan continued to deduce, the battle between the supreme demon realm and Shengtian intensified, and the world began to feel the effects, with the range getting wider and wider. As the saying goes, when immortals fight, mortals suffer. Even a hint of their unleashed pressure was enough to plunge a region into crisis. Time flew by rapidly. An Xian, celestial demon child, Lv, and others couldn't calm down to cultivate. They gathered together, discussing the earth-shaking battle. The screen Guan left behind was reflecting the heaven and earth Dao fruit, which was precisely the battlefield itself. SAR the Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Looking at the unstoppable Zhu Xi. Those who had seen her before were all marveling. They had never imagined that the once timid female disciple would have such a domineering side. It looks like the supreme demon realm can't stop her. She seems to be absorbing the power of the heaven and earth Dao fruit. Goodness, if she successfully absorbs it, will she continue to break through? This Dao fruit is heaven and earth itself. Controlling it would mean controlling the entire world. It's unimaginable. Yes, but don't forget what Master said. All of this is due to the machinations of immortal gods, who have yet to show themselves. Disciples excitedly discussed among themselves. They were amazed by Zhu Xi and the strength of the supreme demon realm, but they weren't panicked, although they didn't say it outright. Everyone felt in their hearts that Guan was the strongest. Even the blood prison great saint, who had seen the end of great heaven and earth, was calm. In his view, even if his master couldn't defeat that being capable of destroying the universe, he had the power to protect himself. As long as his master dared to continue watching the chaos, he wouldn't panic. He even suspected that his master wanted to snatch the heaven and earth Dao fruit. In the blink of an eye, 2 days passed. The battle for the Dao fruit continued. The supreme demon realm had already lost half of its forces, and much of the land had cracked, killing countless beings. Sea waves rolled endlessly into the distance, with many magical treasures and flying creatures following them. Various sects were migrating, and there were imperial dynasties taking their citizens to flee, but during the escape, there was both unity and shady deeds happening. Taitsong continent was far from the heaven and earth Dao fruit. Countless cultivators at the continent's edge were blocking tsunamis. There was no immediate catastrophe, but the hearts of everyone grew increasingly heavy. The longer time dragged on, the more disaster it brought to all beings. That day at noon, another boundless and mighty pressure descended. This pressure didn't make the creatures of heaven and earth feel uncomfortable, but instead brought a revitalizing sensation. That golden core has actually found an inheritor. Wait, could it be? The immortal seeker, standing on the heaven and earth Dao fruit, frowned and muttered to himself. Not far away, Zhu Xi continued to absorb the power of the heaven and earth Dao fruit. Looking upward, Zhu Xi was condensing a Dharma aspect even larger than the heaven and earth Dao fruit, with 1,000 arms, each holding different magical treasures. The Dharma aspect was ever-changing and dazzling to behold. Zhu Xi turned her head to look at him and asked, "Could it be what?" The immortal seeker had a complex look in his eyes but simply shook his head slightly, saying nothing. Seeing that he was hiding something from her, a chill flashed in Zhu Xi's eyes, but she said no more. At this point, she had no retreat. In fact, not seeing the celestial spirit god up to this point, Zhu Xi felt something was off. The absence of the celestial spirit god meant that even if her actions were successful, they wouldn't threaten him, which was a frightening prospect. Zhu Xi looked down at the heaven and earth Dao fruit beneath her feet, her gaze attempting to pierce through the golden Dao patterns, to see through the heaven and earth Dao fruit. A dazzling bright light struck from the side, hitting Zhu Xi's face. She glanced over to see a huge sun appearing in the sky, illuminating the entire celestial spirit great world. In an instant, the whole world was enveloped in strong light. The nearby continents and oceans were stripped of color. Boom, 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 out of the massive sun surged waves of fire, forming huge golden dragons larger than mountains, breathing scorching heat. The heaven and earth Dao fruit, I and how also desire it. A loud voice like thunder rang through heaven and earth, audible to all creatures. The name and how instantly embedded itself in the memory of all beings. Those who knew him were incredulous, and those who didn't felt tense. Just hearing the voice made one want to submit. Such a powerful being entering the battlefield would surely bring even greater catastrophe to heaven and earth. And how? At Supreme Sect, within the Third Medicine Valley, the aged LV Batian sat by his garden, looking up at the bright sun in the sky, mumbling to himself. His turbid eyes gradually brightened. In a trance, it seemed he saw the spirited youth from 9,000 years ago standing in front of him again. I really am old, LV Batian mumbled to himself. But you certainly aren't old yet. Where are you watching all this? Search the Novel Fire Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Chapter 549. Celestial Spirit Immortal Venerable, Supreme Demon Emperor Gu and appeared with the Celestial Tao Golden Core. And that magnificent celestial might made the situation in the great heaven and earth even tenser. Zhu Shi did not respond to Gu An's forceful shouting. She directly controlled the Dharma aspect to strike at Guan, releasing the profound primordial aura that made the rules of heaven and earth tremble, causing the celestial vault's thunderclouds to churn and change color, with various anomalies emerging one after another. The clash between the Celestial Tao Golden Core and the Heaven and Earth Tao Fruit affected the entire great heaven and earth. This time, there was no retreat for all beings, as the disaster was no longer centered around the Heaven and Earth Tao Fruit spreading outwards, but instead causing the great heaven and earth to crack everywhere, with no pattern to speak of. In front of these two powerful forces, any being wishing to participate in the struggle did not even have the qualification to approach. The 7 subordinates of the silent destruction god emperor were not attracted to the heaven and earth Tao fruit. Instead, they flew towards the outer heaven. After a long time, they flew to the world gate, and in front of the seated celestial spirit god, they bowed respectfully, with a reverent attitude. One of them took out a long command token, and said carefully, "Celestial God, we wish to return to our great thousand world." The celestial spirit god did not open his eyes, but the world gate behind him began to tremble, and a strong light burst forth from within, which relieved the 7 individuals, who immediately flew into the world gate. After their figures disappeared, the world gate quickly returned to calm, and the strong light inside faded away. A mass of black chi condensed out of thin air next to the celestial spirit god, gradually forming a sinister, cold face. Celestial God, in this battle, my supreme demon realm has suffered heavy losses. Why have you not taken action yet? The mysterious face asked, its tone perplexed. The celestial spirit god slowly opened his eyes, which were brighter than the sun and the moon, and also demonstrated celestial might. Seeing him open his eyes, the aura of the mysterious face visibly weakened. I have my own certainty. What you seek is for the supreme demon realm to become an independent great heaven and earth. Even if these demons die out, it doesn't matter. The celestial spirit god's tone was categorically strong-willed, causing the mysterious face to frown. The celestial spirit god's gaze looked towards the celestial spirit great world, his eyes indifferent, yet seeming to be anticipating something. May I ask, celestial god, now that the celestial Tao destiny has dissipated, why don't you simply destroy the celestial spirit great world? Your goal couldn't possibly be that heaven and earth Tao fruit. The mysterious face continued to ask, growing uneasy as the situation progressed. He couldn't quite pinpoint the source of his unease. He understood the celestial spirit god. This celestial god disdained deception, and would fulfill promises he made. But he didn't understand what the celestial spirit god was thinking. Do you know who created the celestial spirit great world? The celestial spirit god asked, his voice devoid of any emotion. The mysterious face answered, I only know of such a creator, unaware of their identity and name. He is the celestial spirit immortal venerable, surpassing the free immortal, condensing the golden immortal Tao fruit. the celestial court's immortal official recruited him, offering him the celestial Tao immortal position. Life as long as heavenly Tao. The celestial spirit god explained. He refused. Thus he met such a fate, and his great thousand world is also not blessed by the heavenly Tao. The mysterious face went silent, pondering the celestial spirit god's intent. Was it a warning? Or was it touting the dominance of the celestial court? The celestial spirit god turned his head towards the mysterious face, his gaze making the mysterious face's color unnaturally change. Supreme Demon Emperor, you have undergone reincarnation tens of thousands of times, always one step shy of the golden immortal Tao fruit. The shortfall lies in your understanding of the world. Once you create a great world, you will naturally break through. But you must always remember who created everything and who set the order. When the heavenly Tao wishes you to do something, going against the heavenly Tao will mark the beginning of your endless calamity. The tone of the celestial spirit god made the one called Supreme Demon Emperor's expression fluctuate. Meanwhile, the great battle in the human world was still ongoing. Guan, who was manipulating the celestial Tao golden core, had white hair and skin that even started to show bloodstains. Even so, he was still resolutely staring at Zhuxi. Zhuxi glanced at him, her eyes revealing a disdainful sneer. She didn't understand what and how was fighting for, but the heaven and earth Tao fruit was a trap in itself. Countless beings went mad for it, reckless with their own lives. The immortal seeker looked at Anhao with a peculiar gaze, occasionally glancing back at Zhuxi. Suddenly Zhuxi spoke up. It seems we both consider ourselves the savior, but I am stronger. If I'm not mistaken, what we're facing is not just the celestial spirit god, but also the existence who created the celestial spirit great world, your disciple as well. As her words ended, Zhu Zai's eyes turned cold as she looked toward the immortal seeker. The immortal seeker had sought her out under the pretext of helping his disciple seek revenge. Now that his disciple was not entirely dead, their trust was naturally crumbling. Search * the Nell Fire. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The immortal seeker sighed. I failed to see through him. I didn't expect him to hide so deeply. However, what comes next is a good thing for you. You won't have to face the celestial spirit god alone. Zhuxi lifted her right hand, and the thousand-handed Dharma aspect above her changed gestures, the various magical treasures blazing with dazzling light. Anhao, suspended in front of the celestial Tao golden core, suddenly had his pupils constrict. The world in front of him changed abruptly, and he found himself in a barren land with no bounds. There was no sky above, only a brilliant starscape, and Zhu Zai's Dharma aspect loomed even larger above him, looking down. Anhao frowned. Behind him, more waves of fire surged from the celestial Tao golden core, quickly pulling him into it. One of us will be possessed by him. And even though you are also a disciple of Master, his favorite disciple, I won't give up on myself. Zhu Zai's voice echoed beneath the starry void, filled with an oppressive force. Within the celestial Tao golden core, an eye appeared, occupying the entirety of it, bearing a resemblance to Anhao's eyes, yet different. Meanwhile, in reality, the celestial Tao golden core collided with Zhu Zai's Dharma aspect, scattering it before landing on the heaven and earth Tao fruit, while Zhuxi and the immortal seeker had vanished without a trace. From a cosmic perspective, the celestial spirit great world burst into a wave of shock force, spreading extravagantly through the universe. The layers of celestial Tao light completely dissipated, and the beings fleeing to outer heaven were eradicated by the shock, utterly annihilated. The evil demons assaulting the heaven and earth Tao fruit from the supreme demon realm were wiped out. In contrast, the cultivators from the human world remained unharmed. Elsewhere, in front of the world gate, the celestial spirit god slowly rose to his feet. Just as the supreme demon emperor was about to speak, he sharply turned his head, showing a look of shock. This aura! How is it possible? Is he really still alive? Exclaimed the supreme demon emperor. The celestial spirit god raised his right hand, and a giant axe appeared in his grip, spiraling with celestial Tao flame. It was the white flame that symbolized absolute order. I have been looking forward to this battle for a long time, forgetting how many years it has been. The voice of the celestial spirit god resounded, his tone becoming excited for the first time, tinged with a trace of fervor. Far away in the Taoist field of the beginningless, Guan suddenly sat up, his expression peculiar, and his eyes filled with surprise. How and he actually? Guan noticed that Enhao's physical body had merged with the heaven and earth Tao fruit, even evolving into a different aura. It felt like the awakening of a past life, yet different. Enhao was undoubtedly connected to the founder of the celestial spirit great world, but likely not a reincarnation. While surprised by Enhao's transformation, the strength of the celestial spirit god was something neither Enhao nor the heaven and earth Tao fruit could contend with. It would ultimately be up to him to make a move. Good. Guan stood up and began to limber up inside the room, forming a stark contrast with the celestial spirit god before the world gate. He was eager to try. The other, invincible to the world. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible.